Today, I need to confess that I'm secretly planning to move out, all because my boyfriend is basically forcing me to prove that I actually love him in our relationship, as he's even gone as far as threatening my housing situation since I live with him, putting me in a situation where this has escalated in a way that is very serious. And at this point, I'm very frustrated, I'm seriously confused, and I just don't know what to do. Here's what's going on. Subscribe to Am I the Jerk and hit the bell to turn on notifications. I'm a 27-year-old female, and my boyfriend, who I will call Adam, is 29, and we've been together for almost 3 years and living together for about 1. Now, for most of our relationship, Adam has been very affectionate and attentive. When things are good, they are genuinely amazing. He remembers little details, he plans thoughtful dates, and he tells me that I'm the only person who has ever made him feel understood. But whenever he feels rejected, even over something really small, he becomes a completely different person. The reoccurring issue is that he thinks I ignore him on purpose. For example, if I don't respond while I'm working out, but he sees that I'm recently active on WhatsApp, he'll send me messages like, "Oh, well, clearly you have time for everyone else except for me. Oh, don't worry, I understand where I stand now." When I explain the number of reasons why I open up the app, whether it's for work or to respond to my sister, or simply because I just didn't have the emotional capacity to have a conversation at that moment, he just says that I'm making excuses. The conversation then turns into hours of me trying to prove that I really care about him, because then he'll say things like, "Oh, if you loved me, reassuring me wouldn't feel like a chore. You always make me feel crazy for having feelings. Maybe I should disappear so you can finally be happy." Sometimes he even threatens to end the relationship, but when I accept that he wants to break up, he becomes furious and says I gave up on him too easily. And at this point, I've started becoming extremely anxious whenever I see a message from him during work. Before opening it, I wonder whether he's upset, whether I've accidentally done something wrong, and whether my entire evening is about to become a 3-hour argument. Now, the incident that finally pushed me over the edge happened last weekend. I went to my friend's birthday dinner, and yes, Adam was invited, but he said he didn't want to come because he didn't feel welcome around my friends. And while no one's ever excluded him, he still says that they don't make enough effort to involve him. Now, at the restaurant, my phone was in my bag, and about 45 minutes into dinner, I checked it and I saw 17 messages and 4 missed calls. Now, the messages, they started normally with him saying, "Oh, I hope you're having fun," but then it morphed into, "Oh, you haven't even checked in on me." Then he said, "Well, I guess I know what matters more," with the final message saying that I can either come home tonight or I don't come home at all. So I went outside and I called him. He was crying and said that he had been having a panic attack because I hadn't answered, and I apologized for not checking my phone, but I also told him that saying you're going to kick me out of the house was not acceptable. He then said that I was focusing on his wording instead of the pain that caused it. And you know what? I ended up leaving the dinner early. When I finally got home, he was sitting calmly on the sofa. He then asked to see my phone because he wanted proof that I hadn't been deliberately ignoring him while messaging other people. But I said no. He then responded by saying that I have my answer. And when he said this, I got so angry. I told him, "Look, I'm tired of constantly being treated like I'm guilty of something." And when I said this, he started crying again and said that I was emotionally abandoning him when he needed reassurance. So eventually, I just gave him my phone. He then went through my messages and found nothing naturally. And then he said, "See, that wasn't so difficult. We could have avoided this entire fight if you just reassured me from the very beginning." And that sentence made something really click in my head. He threatened my housing. He ruined my friend's birthday dinner. He demanded access to my private messages. And somehow, despite all of this, I ended the night apologizing to him. Well, the next morning, he was extremely loving. He made me breakfast. He bought flowers and said that he was sorry for getting emotional. He also said that we both needed to work on things because my defensiveness makes his anxiety worse. And you know what? I didn't argue. Instead, while he was at work, I contacted my sister and I asked whether I could stay with her temporarily. And now I've started quietly gathering my important documents and moving a few sentimental items to her apartment. And no, I haven't told Adam at all. Part of me feels terrified and guilty. He's never hit me or physically stopped me from leaving, and he says his reactions come from past trauma and abandonment issues. He also tells me that leaving without giving him another chance would prove that everyone eventually abandons him. I know secretly planning to leave sounds dishonest, and I also know that he'll be devastated when he realizes what I've done, but I'm scared that if I tell him in advance, I'll end up spending hours comforting him, doubting myself in the process, and agreeing to stay. So am I overreacting by planning to leave while he thinks everything's fine? Should I insist on couples therapy first, or is this already beyond the point where therapy would help us? Because right now, I really just don't know what to do. Oh my gosh, dude, first off, I'm so glad you're getting out of there. This is really weird behavior. This is one of those situations where it's like, oh man, this is self-fulfilling prophecy. He's like, everybody abandons me and I don't know why. And if you leave, that's just proof that's always happening to me. And it's like, yeah, dude, no wonder, like, holy crap, you're acting like a psychopath. demanding her phone to look through it only to find nothing, literally shifting conversations around to make it seem like it's her fault, while also demanding her full attention and like crying when you don't get your way. Like, dude, screw this crap. The breaking point for me would him being like, oh yeah, you can't live here anymore. It's like, dude, wait a second, hold on, what are we doing here? That is a weird jump in logic here, my dude. Just because I'm spending time with my friends doesn't mean I'm somehow neglecting you. Like, holy crap, he was invited to this party. What is he talking about? Why on earth is he sitting there acting like, oh yeah, you just don't pay enough attention to me. You're not doing enough to make me happy. It's like, I don't know what you want, dude. Like, why is he trying to test you so much in this relationship? And no, it's not because of past trauma or abandonment. That is insane. That's a crazy precedent to try and set, and it's just not realistic in my opinion. So truly, if I was in your shoes, I would be making this move permanent. I would see what my living situation is, if you owe rent or if you can like break lease or whatever's going on, and I would personally move out until this guy either calms down or you make the decision to finally break up with him. Which for me, if I was in your shoes and my girlfriend was acting like this, where she's just being creepy and weird and then love bombing me after the fact with breakfast and love and like, oh, I'm so glad things are working out. Like, dude, I would be absolutely checking out of that relationship and I'd be like, okay, I gotta call my sister up, I'm moving out. Because screw that, bro. That is some weird toxic energy. So no, you're not the jerk for leaving and going to your sister's house, but you need to know for a fact that this guy's gonna make a huge deal out of this. He's gonna freak out and be like, I can't believe you're abandoning me just like everybody else. But like my response would be like, yeah, I can see why people leave you, dude. You're acting like a weirdo, because this behavior is so uncalled for. It is really toxic. It's a giant red flag. And it seems like this can possibly go in a direction that will be kind of dangerous for you in a way that I think you definitely should not ignore. Subscribe to Am I the Jerk and you too can also become a super genius, because Legend Avery literally said they're making a computer in Minecraft. Are you kidding me right now? How do you even do that? And yeah, if you think I'm like talking crazy, apparently that is a thing. You can do some insane things in Minecraft, but like that's one of those things I didn't know was possible until like, oh, I don't know, 5 seconds ago when I Googled it. So yeah, good for you, Avery. That's insane. You must be very smart and there's no way I could ever replicate that. Like literally, I could never do that in a million years. So good for you and thank you so much for watching. We appreciate having geniuses, like super evil geniuses who hopefully will use their powers for good, watching the channel and enjoying the process. So yeah, man, stick around and please be on our good sides. We do not want to like deal with your wrath. Who knows what you could do? Because I think we all know that, yeah, Minecraft computers eventually lead to world domination. So please remember us when you're like ruling the entire world. Also, if you want to submit your own stories, go to AmITheJerk.com/submit. That's the best place to get your voice heard, man. I want to give a voice to your story, bro. So don't be shy, man. Share your stories. We would love to hear them. But with that, let's get back to the video and on to the next story. Am I the jerk for wanting to set up some kind of payment plan with my girlfriend, as she's almost demanding that I give her $15,000 just so I can make a dent in the debt she's currently dealing with? Because once I asked for clarification about this, she basically made it sound like I didn't love her. And now I'm really frustrated, I'm kind of pissed off, and I don't really know what to do. Here's what's happening. Okay, so my girlfriend has around $50,000 in debt, starting from when she was 20 years old and then gradually just growing as time went on. And mind you, this spreads across a few banks, with some of them from like a credit card and a personal loan, some from a separate loan, and part of it from a trip to Europe last year that I actually advised her against at the time. She makes around $60,000 a year, and recently she asked me, somewhat hypothetically at first, if I would lend her $15,000 so she could pay off one of her debts and avoid ongoing interest. She said that her plan was to pay me back $1,000 a month for the next 15 months. Now, I didn't say yes immediately. I told her I needed to think about it. I mean, it's a big amount. Also, we're not really married, and I've got no real protection if something happens to the relationship or if payments stop. I also somewhat feel resentful that after all these years of trying to get her to realize that she has no financial bearings, I now have to face the burden myself. I also don't fully understand why her sister or her brother-in-law aren't in a position to help out, especially given that they're family. Like, if they won't help, then doesn't that say a lot? Anyway, since then, things have gotten really tense. She's told me things like, oh, I shouldn't have to think twice if I really cared about her, and separately, that she'd never actually want to ask in the first place. She's also said I clearly don't understand what it's like to be at rock bottom financially, and framed my hesitation as evidence that I'm not really willing to support her. But here's the thing, I do care about her, and I'm not saying no outright. I just don't think immediately handing over $15,000 without a real conversation, especially about terms or without any kind of protection, is unreasonable to want. But now I'm getting made to feel like wanting that discussion is the actual problem. So am I the jerk here? Like seriously, I'm kind of at a loss and I don't really know what to do. Okay, if this is not a giant red flag, then I don't know what is, dude. Look, I get it. You love your girlfriend and you've been with her for a while and like you want to support her, but her not wanting to have this conversation, to have like clear guidelines and boundaries is crazy in my opinion. Like first off, I don't know about you, but I don't just have $15,000 laying around that I'm like, oh yeah, I can give this to you. Like that's a lot of money that I really need to like carefully understand what it's being used for and when I'm going to get that money back. Like holy crap, dude. And you know what? I would even go as far as to say that that's high enough where I would need something in writing, like something written down where it says, okay, every month at the first of the month or whenever, you're going to pay me $1,000 until this is paid off in 15 months. Because holy crap, that's a lot of money. And I just would not want to just jump into that and be like, oh yeah, fine, here's the money, go for it. So yeah, her trying to be like, wow, you don't want to support me, you don't love me, all because you're trying to figure out some kind of framework of how this is going to get paid back. Like that's really weird and super toxic in my opinion. So no, you're not the jerk. You're being reasonable and your girlfriend is definitely not. Today, I need to confess that I'm secretly paying for my late best friend's son's college tuition. He's under the impression that he won an anonymous academic scholarship, but in reality, it was me the entire time. And honestly, I don't regret this for a single second. Here's what's going on. Okay, so my best friend Dave passed away from cancer 6 years ago. His biggest fear on his deathbed was that his 12-year-old son, who I will call Leo, wouldn't be able to afford college when it was time. Dave worked 3 blue-collar jobs, and his wife passed away years before. They literally had zero savings. So I promised Dave that I would take care of it. But I knew that Leo was too proud to accept direct charity from me. I mean, he is just like his dad after all. So last year, I worked with a local community foundation just to set up a fake private memorial scholarship. I funded the entire thing myself for $80,000. I made the application process look incredibly official and competitive. Well, Leo applied, and last week he received his acceptance letter stating he won the award. He then called me up crying tears of joy, telling me that his late night study sessions finally paid off. And you know what? I had to choke back my own tears while pretending to be completely shocked. He genuinely believes that his own academic merit earned him this free ride. Now, I'm confessing this here because I can never tell another soul. If he ever finds out it was just me handing him a check, it would completely shatter his confidence and somehow make him feel like a charity case. I want him to go to university believing that he earned every single bit of it. It's the hardest secret I've ever had to keep, but honestly, I think it's completely worth it. Oh man, that was like super wholesome. I'm so glad you did that. Holy crap, talk about being in a position to help somebody out who really needs it. Like this really is heartwarming because like, dude, this is so sad. Leo didn't deserve to have both of his parents pass away. And I think it's smart that you set up the charity in a way where it's like, okay, it's a charity that's paying you and not me, because I think I would be in Leo's case as well. I wouldn't really want a handout. I would want to work for it and have my own ducks in a row. So yeah, this was brilliant. I think the original poster is a fantastic person, and I really hope Leo has the best future and really enjoys his college experience. Am I the jerk for not prioritizing another woman's comfort, as she literally wanted me to move across the restaurant so I could eat my food, as she didn't like the fact that I was looking in the same direction as her, claiming that I was staring at her when literally I was looking at nothing. Here's what happened. Okay, so because I was home all alone today, I decided to go eat solo at an all-you-can-eat buffet. The waitress took me to a prospective table, but it was in the middle of the main dining room. Now, for a little bit about me, I suffer from PTSD stemming from the work I did in my past, and sitting out in the open like that makes me extremely uncomfortable, and I really just would not be able to enjoy my meal. So I kindly asked if I could be moved somewhere where I could put my back to the wall, and the waitress understood and obliged. As I was enjoying my succulent Chinese meal, the table in front of me is then sat with 4 young ladies, and if I were to guess, I would put their age range to be like early 20s, if that. As I was eating, one of the young ladies called out to me and said, "Do you mind?" To which the other 3 turned and looked at me. Now, I have no idea what they're talking about, so she just says to me, "Can you please stop staring at us? That is really creepy. In fact, can you sit at the other side of the table so you're not staring at my friend's butt?" Now, I was confused, but I know given my past that I can have the tendency to drift into a 1,000-yard stare, and it's one of those situations where I'm not really looking at anything specifically, but I'm just staring off into nowhere. I then apologized and I told her, "Hey, I'm sorry, if I was looking in your direction, it wasn't intentional. I tend to zone out when I'm alone." Well, she then told me that it wasn't okay, and that she again would feel better if I moved or changed positions on the table to face the wall. Now, the room had already filled up pretty quickly, so finding a new place wasn't really an option. But also, I didn't really feel like I should because my food and drink are here at this table and I'm already eating. I then responded by saying, "Well, I'm sorry, but I suffer from PTSD, so I need my back to the wall for me to be able to eat comfortably." But that's when she responded by saying, "Well, I have PTSD from being attacked, and I don't want some creepy old guy looking at us while we're eating." And at this time, other people were looking and staring, which was really upsetting. So I told her, "Hey, that's terrible, but I'm not gonna move. My triggers are my own, and and yours are your own. I control what I do by sitting with my back to a wall, and I don't get to tell other people what to do just to make me comfortable. Now, she interrupted me plenty while I was trying to explain, but her main point was in today's world, being a young woman is dangerous, which I totally understand, but I'm not gonna have severe anxiety while I eat. She went off for a bit about how men refuse to be accommodating to women, and how it's so horrible that I was just being selfish. I then ended up leaving early only after doing one plate, which I usually do like 2 to 4, so I was really bummed out, but the added attention and frustration made the experience unenjoyable any further. But the more I think about it, honestly, the more I'm unsure if I should have just like sucked it up and not made a scene so those young ladies didn't have to feel that kind of anxiety that I feel from my PTSD. So seriously, am I the jerk here because I just don't know what to do anymore? Okay, I really don't think the original poster is the jerk. Obviously, they didn't do anything wrong. They're just sitting here eating their food and just staring off into space. And I don't know, maybe it's just me, but you can usually tell when someone's not like directly looking at you, but they're kind of like looking through you. Because if someone's looking at you, they would probably glance away when you look at them. They probably would be like, oh no, they're looking, let me look away. But this guy was just eating and staring off into space, which is one of my favorite hobbies, so I totally understand where he's coming from. And it's really insulting because this guy was handling his triggers in the best way he knew how by sitting against the wall. And this lady basically made it all about herself and said, oh yeah, well basically you're an attacker by looking at me. And it's like, dude, I am literally eating lunch, minding my own business. Just because you have PTSD about being attacked doesn't mean that I'm the assailant just because my face is placed in the same direction as you. Like, holy crap, talk about the biggest stretch on planet Earth. Like, are you serious right now? That is such an obnoxious thing to accuse somebody of, because that's what she's really saying. She's saying that because this guy's looking at her, he's going to attack her. And it's like, dude, that's not the case. Holy crap. He's not bothering anybody. He's just eating his meal. It'd be one thing if he was like talking to you and making inappropriate comments, but he literally said nothing, and then you try to twist like his PTSD against him. Like, good lord. So no, you are not the jerk. Those people trying to make a big deal about you sitting and existing in the same space as them, they're the jerk. Because their attitude was terrible, and them trying to justify you moving is just so weird and completely inappropriate. Am I the jerk for telling a kid to move who took my seat, as I was literally offering that seat to an old woman so that she could sit down? Because now, after being basically like verbally chewed out by this kid's mom, saying that I shouldn't even be talking to her kid, I'm now in a state where I'm just completely blown away by this level of entitlement. And at this point, I just don't know what to do. Here's what's currently going on. Okay, so my family and I were at a restaurant, and since it was a busy night, we were waiting for a table. We were sitting in the lobby area, and all the other seats were full, and there were plenty of people standing around due to the lack of seating. Well, another group came into the restaurant and also had to wait for a table, and in this group was an elderly woman with a walker. She was walking very slowly and was clearly having a hard time, but also she was breathing a bit heavily, and both of her legs were wrapped in bandages. So I got up, I went over to them, not even like maybe 10 feet away, and I just straight up offered this woman my seat. She and the family thanked me way too much for offering, but when I turned around, a child that was like maybe 10 years old had already taken the seat. I then walked up to him and I said, hey there, I actually got up to let this nice lady have my seat. Could you please move for me? Well, this kid's face turned red, and he said that the chair didn't have my name on it and that I gave it up when I walked away, which in any other circumstance I would completely agree with, but I think it's just common sense to give up your seat to someone that actually needs it. I then said to the kid, okay, come on kid, just be nice. And this was like apparently the final straw because he started screaming for his mom, saying that I was bullying him and wouldn't leave him alone. Well, let me tell you something. The mom was just as considerate as her child and actually berated me for telling her child what to do. I tried again to say like, hey, some people need to sit, and her kids should be considerate to the elderly. But by then, the child was crying and everyone was staring, and the family of the woman with the walker looked so uncomfortable, saying, oh, it's fine, just let him have it. So I just dropped it and just begrudgingly said, okay, and I moved to the side and waited for a table, and the whole time the mom and kid were just glaring at me. I even overheard her telling her son that he did the right thing by yelling for her, because apparently a stranger was approaching him. And at this point, I'm very conflicted. I can see where the mom is coming from, but at the same time, I think she should have also just had her kid move for the elderly person. So am I the jerk here for expecting others to have some kind of common courtesy? Because right now I really just don't know what to do. Okay, if this shows you anything, honestly, it shows you where this kid got this attitude from, because holy crap, you are not the jerk here. You were just trying to do a good deed and you stepped away for like 2 seconds, and then this little brat takes your seat and says, well, I don't see your name on it. Like, good lord, I can't imagine ever acting like that as a kid. And you know for a fact that comes from the mom. Like, just look at the way she acted. Super rude, incredibly entitled, acting like you're some kind of like stranger danger situation, when in reality, the problem is actually her stupid demon child. Like, are you kidding me right now? So no, you did the right thing. I think common sense would have told them, hey, maybe I should get out of the way for the old woman trying to sit down. But at the end of the day, you can't fix stupid, and you definitely cannot solve the idiotic problems that this lady is introducing into her kid's life. Because holy crap, give that kid like 5 years, if that, and he's going to be a nightmare for her. And she's going to wish she had been more disciplined with him because he's going to make her life a living nightmare. My crazy entitled aunt breaks into my house while I'm away out of the country and tries to steal money from me, claiming that I owe her money so that she can go to college. And despite the fact that I never agreed to help pay for her college, she still felt justified in trying to rob me. But as a result of all of this, and after a lengthy court case, she ended up getting 3 years in jail, as well as owing me well over $8,000 for all the damages that she caused. Here's what happened. So I have recently moved to a house I bought in October. This house was one of the houses that my dad's friends wanted to sell, so he gave me a discount for the house. He has lots of properties in my city and wanted to sell some because he's moving to Germany for work in April. As a side note, I do not live in the United States. It's a 3-bedroom house with a small garden in the front and a big garden in the back. I also finished my master's last August, and now I'm planning to travel Europe in October for at least half a year after I finish the project that I'm in charge of for my job. Now, here's where the problem comes into play. I have an aunt from my dad's side who started college last October. Around the time I bought my new house, she told everyone she doesn't have the money to pay for the semester and cannot continue unless she pays till February. The thing is that no one in our family can help her pay but me and her brother, who said no to this request, and now everyone is on his back saying how heartless he is towards his little sister. And for me, even though I bought the house in full, I have my trip money saved, and if I give it to her, she will have enough money for the rest of her college years. Where I live, by the way, college costs about $20,000 for all the years that you're going to be studying. Now, she asked me if I'm willing to pay for her college, and she would really appreciate the gesture. She said that I don't have a mortgage on my house, so I can absolutely help her. And she said that she would make sure to pay me back by the time she finishes her studies, and even give me interest if she can. But here's the thing, if I give her the money, I will no longer be able to travel just like I was planning on doing. And I had saved that money for almost 7 years. My mom said that I needed to help her because she is family, and she used to help a lot with me when I was a kid, even though she was a kid herself at the time. My dad on the other side said that I should not help and let her figure it out herself. He said that I deserve a break and that I should just ignore her and the rest of the family, regardless of if they like my decision or not. He said that I should just focus on my project and plan my trip when I have my free time. I talked with some of my close friends and they were very split on the decision. And honestly, at the time, I was split about it myself because I truly wanted to help her out, but I didn't want to miss out on this trip either. Fast forward, and I decided to go on my vacation 2 weeks ago because I finished the project I was working on in late May instead of July like we thought we would. So I started to plan the vacation. And when it came to house sitting my house, I chose my 19-year-old brother because he can live in my house free of charge as long as he takes care of the place. Plus, I also really trust him. Now, when I was in Germany, I got a WhatsApp call from my brother about how when he was away to get food, he found our aunt's car next to the house, and when he went to check, he found that she broke the door and was looking through my stuff, most likely to try and find something of valuable to steal, and she most likely didn't know my brother is temporarily living there and somehow thought that the house is empty. He called her out and said that if she didn't get out, he would call the police and dad, but she refused, claiming that I owed her because she now has to take out loans in order to continue her college education, and she believed that I should help pay her loans because I didn't help her back in January. My brother ended up calling the cops and messaging our dad, and when she realized what was going on, she went to her car and then she drove off. When the cops and my dad came, he told them what happened and showed the camera footage, which shows how she broke the door, went through my stuff, and wrecked the place. The cops took a copy of the footage and told my dad that they would handle the rest of it and keep in contact with them when they were finished with her. He told me that they caught her later in the night in her friend's apartment and they were going to charge her with breaking and damaging my property. She broke my TV, my PS5, part of my games collections, my gaming PC, and some other stuff that I thankfully don't care about as much. Now, at this point, she is in jail and has a court hearing, and I need to be at trial. Now, luckily, my dad's a lawyer, and he managed to only need me to be there through Zoom instead of coming back to to my country for the trial as long as my dad will be there to represent me as well. Well, I feel like garbage on my vacation, even though it has been a week. I didn't know my aunt was capable of doing something like that, and some of the games that she damaged were some of my favorites of all time. So anyways, fast forward to the trial, and the trial was longer than I thought it would be. We were there for an hour and a half. In the trial, her lawyer said to her defense that my aunt had a manic episode because of her not doing well in classes, to the point that she had to retake 2 classes in the summer, and if she didn't take them, she would have to repeat her first year. And also, because she was a recovering addict, which is something that I definitely didn't know, she chose to use the herb for the first time with her friend group, and that when the idea to rob me came up, she went ahead and did just that. Now, as you can see, the defense wasn't good. I mean, the herb only became legal in my country for medical purposes very recently. Even her lawyer looked like she didn't have enough to work with, and the judge did not look happy with this. Now, I told my lawyer that the stuff she destroyed, like my computer and the games, were very important stuff to me, and that I lost the data from the games that I accumulated in almost 20 years. Which also isn't true, by the way. I have everything saved up on ROMs on my SD card in my room. I just didn't tell that to anyone, and thank God I did this. And when I told my lawyer this, they also believe that she should be reimbursing me for all this stuff at market value, as well as all the other stuff that she broke. I did my best to look sad when I was questioned about the whole thing, unlike my aunt who looked like she was faking it the entire time. After all of this, the judge came with her sentence. She was going to serve 3 years in jail, not because of breaking into my house, but because there was an illegal substance in her car. But she can be released early if she acts well in jail. She also now owes me $8,200 for all the damage that she caused, and that includes all the stuff that she destroyed. And luckily, she will be able to pay for some of the expensive stuff. Well, now that she is in jail, I'm sure that some of my family will absolutely hate my guts, and this is just based off some of the messages I got in the past 3 weeks, calling me selfish, an entitled jerk, a backstabber, and all this other stuff that are way worse than that. But honestly, when it comes to my aunt, I hope she has a fun time in jail. Wow, what a crazy person. This lady really was like, okay, you're gonna pay for my college classes. Like, no, I'm not gonna do any of that. Why on earth would anyone try and make that assumption simply because this person paid for their house in full? Like, this lady's acting as if this person had won the lottery or something like that. They're now running up to their house and begging for money. And you know what? If you go into college and you're failing your courses and you're not being responsible with your money and you're unable to pay for it, well then guess what? You probably should not be in college. Like, seriously, how is that anybody else's fault except for this really weird aunt? Like, isn't it her responsibility to pay for these classes? Why is this falling squarely on the shoulders of the original poster? They're literally just trying to save up to travel Europe. Like, they literally don't need this kind of garbage. And this isn't even to mention the fact that she broke into your house just to try and steal some kind of valuable belongings, all because she thinks that you owe her money. Like, that is honestly insane. So truly, good for you for putting your foot down and getting back at this crazy aunt, because at the end of the day, she absolutely had it coming. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to AmITheJerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My entitled neighbor treats me and my family like garbage, all because we replaced his best friends that used to live in the house that we were currently living in. Here's what happened. So to start things out, this happened back in 2002 or 2003. My parents and I had moved into our home in October of 2001. The prior tenants of our house, the people who lived across from us, and the house 2 doors down from us on the left were all really good friends. But the prior tenants and the 2 doors down house were the best of friends. And for the sake of the story, the best friend's name will be John. John is not his real name. Right from the get-go, John was not a fan of us because we had replaced his best friend. Now mind you, the prior tenants willingly left because the husband had gotten a job 3 hours away. It's also worth mentioning that the prior tenants were the type to wake up at the crack of dawn to tend to their flower bed, as well as maintain their front lawn and wash their cars and stuff like that. They were everything that we were not. For a couple of years, we lived there without there being any kind of issue. Then one day, John decided he had had enough. My mom had just gotten done mowing the front and backyard when shortly thereafter she hears a weed whacker. She looked out the front window that looks out on our front yard and sees John weed whacking our lawn. She goes to find out exactly what it is he thinks he's doing, and he then just goes off on her about how he's tired of our lawn looking the way it does and that he's giving it the proper care that it needs. John and my mom then get into our driveway and eventually eventually John sulks away. You would think that that would be the end of it, but no, not even close. My mom had gone back into my house and proceeded to call my stepdad to let him know what had happened. As she is on the phone with him, somebody rings our doorbell. My mom opens the door to find John has come back for round 2. Only this time, my mom was not having it. She decided to threaten him with the police, and he finally permanently went back to his house. Thankfully, we never really had any other issues with John regarding the lawn, but the damage was already done. My stepdad had convinced my mom that she couldn't grow the lawn out to the maximum length that the city would allow, and then only trim an inch off. We did take great joy when we had Halloween-themed lawn flamingos for a bit, because we were certain that John absolutely hated it. Wow, John's a complete jerk. Like seriously, stay off of other people's property. It's not that hard of a concept, and honestly, he was asking for a lot of trouble if he seriously wanted to try to do that. Like seriously, what on earth was he thinking? You can't just do that to someone else's property. And honestly, the way he was acting is so out of line. Is he really trying to act as if the new tenants of this house somehow forced his best friends out of the neighborhood? Like the guy literally took a job, what, 3 hours away? That is literally no one else's fault except for the people that moved away. So yeah, that guy's behavior was so far out of line, but your mom handled that like a pro, and thankfully, John never gave you guys problems ever again. My mother keeps venting to me about all the things going wrong in her life, and I honestly don't know if this is normal, and at this point, I don't know what to do. So I'm a teenage male, and I was treated awful by my father since I was 3 years old, and my father separated from my mom a little time before I was born. I stopped visiting him after a major fight when I was 11. There were a lot of court cases and fights between my mother and him, which I had the pleasure of hearing every single time. My mother would tell me in detail about the contents of the fight that I didn't witness and tell me how destroyed she felt about them. If I didn't listen to her, she would get upset and get very angry, talking aloud to herself, saying things like, "I see that I have nothing important to say to you," and would then just keep rambling about how we didn't care about her, how she would move to another place with our dog, that she would never come back, and that we would need to do everything on our own. We both eventually learned to ignore those comments, but it was still very devastating at the time. She first targeted my brother and included me in their fights around the time I was 7. In those fights, she always picked something random that we did wrong, and if we didn't do anything wrong that day, she would pick something random from the past. She never physically hurt us. She doesn't go to my brother for support or to vent because he's autistic and she doesn't want to burden him. I am 8 years younger than him, but I have always felt like his big brother. Emotionally, I've taken care of him for 4 years now, just how a parent would with a 6-year-old. So we constantly fight because of the misunderstandings, and honestly, I don't blame him. I just need to listen better to what he tells me. Now back to the point. My mother would randomly have a bad mood, so we always have to walk on our toes just so we won't anger her. I know that she has those mood swings because she was treated awfully as a child. She tells us about it every single day in detail. I feel like I'm a terrible son because I feel like I need to support her more and not get annoyed whenever she vents to me. One day I was tired and she was venting to me again. I asked her if she could maybe stop telling me those stories and talk maybe to an adult. I did not suggest therapy because we are not able to afford it and we are unfortunately poor. And yes, also she does tell us about finances all the time. When I told her this, she got angry. She said to me, "And now I can't even talk to my own children. Am I not good enough for you? Do you hate me that much? You know that I don't trust other people." And at this point, I just snapped. I asked her, "If you don't trust people, then why do you keep sharing my entire past with them?" She then got even angrier and then walked away, only to then give me the silent treatment. She never even apologized for this, but she does apologize for everything else, as in even if she doesn't do something wrong, which makes me feel even more responsible for her emotional well-being. I love her with my whole heart. She is a good person and has supported me through very hard times. That's why I feel guilty for being annoyed at her for venting to me. Is this a normal situation? What should I do? No, this is not a normal situation. You are her child. You are not her therapist. And I get it, you guys are poor and you can't afford it, or at least that's what your mother likes to tell you. But regardless of all of that, you are not responsible for her emotional well-being. She is a grown 47-year-old woman. You are only a teenager. You are not responsible for an adult and their experience in the world. And let me tell you something, 47 years old is absolutely old enough to know better than what she's trying to do with you and your brother. And honestly, from my perspective looking in, she does not sound like a good mom. Sure, she's done the bare minimum of being there for you in the hard times, but it also really is is not okay in my opinion, the way that she's practically guilt-tripping you anytime she tries to vent to you. And trust me, I get it, being an adult is very stressful. There's lots of things that come along with it that honestly a lot of people just wouldn't know about until you become an adult yourself. But I think it's very poor of her to turn this around and basically place it all on your shoulders. That in my opinion is not fair, and she absolutely either needs a friend or some kind of support group to work through this trauma. Because honestly, at the end of the day, none of this is your fault or your problem. Am I the jerk for telling my half-sister that I will not be naming a baby after her? Here's what happened. My husband and I have 3 children together. Our youngest was born this summer, and we have always named our kids after other people by not using their direct name. Our oldest girl is named Jamie after my brother James. Our middle daughter is named Cleo after my sister Chloe, and our youngest son is Devin after my husband's best friend Devine. We spoke to each person we honored prior to finalizing the name. My siblings were so happy, and my husband's best friend was over the moon. We also never publicly said that we named them after these people. We would just announce the names and leave it as it is. After my 3rd child was born, my half-sister, who's about 12 years old, asked me if I would name our next child after her. But when she asked that, I said that we would not be doing that. She then asked if I would name any child I have after her, and my answer was still the same. Now, for reference, my half-sister is 12 years old. She was upset about this. This angered my mom, who said that it was pretty clear that my kids were named after people, and I shouldn't just honor 2 siblings and not honor all 3. I replied that it should be mine and my husband's choice what we name our children, as well as who we name them after. My mom then said to me, "You looked your baby sister in the face and you crushed her heart and soul. You basically told her that she is not a real sibling, while also implying that only full siblings are worthy of being honored." She then said that I treated the kid like a piece of garbage, and I should have at least offered to help her pick a name or something like that to smooth things over. But according to her, instead I said no, and acted like her feelings didn't matter. My mom also had some things to say to my husband, and he just ignored her. He told me about it, and I told her to keep my husband out of it. So she said, "Fine, you can take the role as the sole jerk of the situation." She then said that my siblings were close since they didn't care about our half-sister feeling upset either. That is, according to my mom. So am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? First off, I want to say that naming your child after somebody in your life, in my opinion, is an awful idea. That is not a good idea. That's only going to result in some kind of drama, and the situation happening right now is a perfect example. But honestly, you're not the jerk here. As long as you're not trying to single out or pick on your half-sister or make her feel isolated from the rest of the family, then honestly, this is not that big of a deal. Because at the end of the day, this is a decision between you and your husband. No one else has a say in this matter, and honestly, your mom is being a complete jerk with the way she's been acting. My friend is making up conspiracy theories about my fiance, all because he got denied his visa to come back to the United States. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. So I met my fiance when he was here in the US on a student visa, and he switched his majors when he was in school. Back in June, he assumed he had to go back to his country to receive a new visa because he saw friends go back for their visas. His friends stayed within the same major and he didn't. So for that, he unfortunately got denied. We were both devastated, and we have been stressed ever since. He has another visa interview coming up, so we're hoping he'll pass that one. But if not, since we're already engaged, we are probably going to proceed with a K1 fiance visa process. Now, I don't think my friend likes my fiance all that much. She always pointed out to me that he lacks being assertive, and she would constantly mention it up to the point where it just became hurtful. I think since he left to go back and everything going on, he became much more assertive and confident. I also know that my fiance has anxiety, and I get it as I have anxiety too. I wouldn't judge him for it because it's so common to have anxiety, and I'm even medicated for it. I feel like she uses the fact that he has anxiety against him as well. I don't like some traits her boyfriend has, but I never mention it to her. I think he's one of those alpha male types. He treats people horribly, and he really is a know-it-all. But it's not my place to even mention what I don't like about him because I know how happy he makes her. When my fiance got denied the visa, I went to her place to talk to her about it. Her boyfriend has knowledge of visas because he came to the US on a work visa. When I told them what happened, they both aggressively blamed my fiance and insisted that I was stupid. Her boyfriend also yelled in my face and pointed his finger at me. She just sat back and let her boyfriend aggressively get in my face. She also insisted that he's only using me for a green card and that he's trying to get me to go back with him to his country. country. Now, I know that it's neither of these things because I had countless conversations with him, and they were all about whether he wants to stay in the US or go back to his home country. After all of that, I thought we moved past it, and she did apologize. But when we were texting, she told me she thinks my fiance left because life was too hard for him here. The easiest outcome was for him to leave for a vacation to see his family and then come back because he knew that he was going to marry me, that his dad didn't want to pay rent for him anymore, and that his parents were going to financially cut him off if he doesn't come back. She just came up with all these conspiracy theories about him. It's not fair at all that she would say this stuff about him without even knowing him, and she doesn't even understand the situation at hand. Yes, he made a big mistake by leaving and should have talked to a lawyer first, but she has no right to come up with these theories without trying to understand the situation. Even when I tried to explain it to her, she told me that I don't know what's going on and she feels like she knows the answer. I told her that she's just making up conspiracy theories about him, and I have this knowledge because I'm the one in the relationship. I told her I'm sure she's looking out for me in some kind of way, but I no longer want to be talking about this. And every time she tries to bring it up, I tell her that the conversation is over. But I feel like she hasn't moved past what I said. And even texting her now, she seems so distant and mad. I don't know what she's looking for out of me. Or is her conspiracy theories and what she said about my fiance completely unnecessary? What should I do? Honestly, I'm kind of surprised that you're still friends with this lady. First off, you know the truth. You know your fiance a lot better than she does. And you know for a fact that he's not coming back just to marry you to get a green card. And his family's not going to disown him or anything like that or cut him off financially or any of the other garbage she's spouting off. She is literally talking out of her rear end. She literally doesn't know what she's talking about. And honestly, if I was in your shoes, I would not waste my time entertaining any kind of conversation with her when it comes to your fiance. My entitled sibling is demanding that I give them my extra car, despite the fact that they have an awful track record with cars and would probably only cause me a lot of trouble. So I decided to say no, and now I'm being called heartless as well as an absolute jerk. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. So for a bit of background, a sibling asked me to borrow my extra car. Now basically, I had a decent car, and then my dad took it away from me as a punishment. This eventually led to me inheriting a very old but surprisingly in good condition car that a relative was nice enough to offer to me because they couldn't sell it. And then I was randomly given my original car back a few years later. Now I'm just starting out in life and I have been in school for a very long time, but I make enough and I am trying to build. My sibling is older and often is struggling financially, and their car got repossessed. They apparently bought a nicer car and they couldn't keep up with making the payments. They share custody of one of their kids, so they need a car to deal with that. They said that they have new coworkers that live nearby, and the other kid's school is really close in walking distance. They asked me for money this week and I said no because it was too much, and last time they didn't even say thank you, so I wasn't going to sacrifice just for that. They then asked if they could borrow my old car and I said no. And trust me, there are lots of reasons why I don't want to give them this car. Now for starters, historically they have an awful track record with their cars. They abandoned one on a private property which led to it being towed, and recently they told me they have a bunch of tickets. They also told me that they can't get car insurance from anywhere due to their past. And before the repossessed car, they bought a lemon of a car and didn't even get the title, and I had to try to help with that. They ended up selling it to a car dealership for about $50, only to then need a new car after that. Now prior to buying the repossessed car, a family member told them to ask me about the car and my mom about the nicer one that I was actually in the process of getting. When I confronted them about this, they lied and said that they didn't know. When I pointed out about being told to ask me, they said that maybe they were confused. They never even asked about my old car back then. Now what they don't know is that I know they spoke to our mom about it and insulted the car because it wasn't good enough for them. Meanwhile, I'm in another tax bracket and was driving that old piece of garbage car before I got my original one back. They also don't know that I know during this conversation with our mom is that they lied and told our mom that I said I don't want to have a relationship with my dad, which I never even said. And this is only after confiding in them about issues that we were having. It basically led me to believe that they were just trying to get the nice car that was taken away from me. Now, the funny thing is that if they had asked me back then, I probably would have just given it to them, even though I could really use the money from selling the old car. And it's right about then that I realized that they would probably take from me if they could, just to better themselves and not care in the slightest. But still, I never confronted them about the lie they told while I was trying to repair a relationship with my dad dad. A couple weeks ago, they asked to buy this old car as a second one, and then their car got repossessed. I mean, why would you think about buying a second car when you don't even have enough money for the first one? I mean, I had to say no for several reasons. First and foremost, I'm in a field where I need to have a clean record. They are also aware that I'm in the process of a background check for a job that can really be life-changing, including loan forgiveness. I also don't want to be liable if something happens, namely an accident or a ticket or something like that. And this is mostly because in general they won't pay, and instead I would have to pay. And I also just don't have the money to be roped into a potential lawsuit should they get into some kind of accident. I explained the liability issue, and they were still mad, saying I put my career over them. Their ongoing transportation issue was also an issue during Christmas because I refused to go to their apartment in an area that has gang members, substance dealers, awful people, and a piece of garbage partner. They were supposed to take the train to us and celebrate with our family, and I spent all this time and money cooking food when I should have been studying, and money was already tight. I mean, I didn't want to go there because they live in gang territory. That's an issue for my safety and the career of me and my partner. We had other stops to make near where we were supposed to gather, and I did not want to change my plans, which included visiting my partner's family. She lied about it and said I was making stuff up and that their kids deserve a good Christmas. We were supposed to have a big family dinner at my grandfather's house, and he canceled because it was too cold or something like that. But in reality, I think it was because of my sibling. I think that he's upset because he's tired of helping them, and he wants everyone to do more because then he came to our parents' house and demanded that we give him a bunch of food for him to take over to them and was acting really nasty the entire time. Not only could they have taken the train to come to us and the kids would have had a great Christmas meal with family and toys, but then later on we found out there was a weapon in the house, but apparently I was just making stuff up. Now anyways, I said that the only way they could have the car is if they buy it and put it in their name as well as put insurance on it, because I literally could not think of any other middle ground. But this proposition absolutely set them off. I honestly don't want liability for any accidents or any tickets, as well as for them using my car for any illegal purposes or anything else that could go wrong. I wouldn't even charge if I gave it like half the value, and I would accept payments over time. They are also struggling financially, and the whole family has helped over the years. I am also younger than them, but I've done better for myself, but really I'm just starting out because I've been in school for so long. Now here's the thing, I've given them money, I bought them a bunch of starter stuff when they got an apartment, even though I wasn't working at the time myself. I've given a birthday gift, as well as gift for their kids, offered to pick up from the train station for different things, several different events just to help them out. I mean, the last time I gave them money, they didn't even acknowledge it or even say thank you. And also when I said I was sick, they didn't even ask how I was feeling. And when I said this, they didn't even comment on it and said that I'm selfish, among a bunch of other stuff. They didn't care that I was protecting myself and my career because they said, oh, well, we have jobs and needs as well. So apparently I should put their needs above my own, even if it can put me in an awful situation. They said they're not mad that I said no, but because I don't care about them or their kids, and I only think about myself. They said I'm not a sister or an aunt, and because of the issues with our parents, I'm barely even a daughter. They pretty much just said that I'm an awful person and that they never want to talk to me again. So should I give them my car? What should I do? I mean, it really sounds like you don't want to give them your car, and I would just honestly leave it at that. Like, let's look at the facts real quick. They have an awful track record. They've treated you and your family like garbage. They're constantly asking for more stuff and they're never giving back. Like, the list goes on and on. You've given a really detailed list as to why they're not someone you want to trust. And honestly, I'm right there with you. I would not give them my car for a second. There's no way that's gonna happen. So truly, I don't blame you for taking that step and saying, no, I'm not giving you my car, because their track record is sketchy. And you can bet the same thing is probably going to happen to your car. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to AmITheJerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My boyfriend is being really cheap all the time, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. My boyfriend and I have been together for 3 years now. We moved in together a year ago in a city about 3 hours away from our main city, and this is where we had everything, friends and work and school, and I had to leave literally everything behind. I didn't want to move there, but he kept insisting on how the rent as well as the prices of the houses were way less expensive. Well, I tried for 6 months, I got depressed, I couldn't fit in, and we moved back to the main city where both of our families are, and he also has friends there. Lately, whenever I keep talking about projects, he complains that it's too expensive. At some point, I needed to get myself bras because I've had my bras for over 4 to 5 years and they were getting really ripped up. Again though, it was way too expensive. So I started being really petty about the bra situation, and I guess he felt some kind of remorse because he apologized and said that I could use the new ones. For the whole year, we've been saving up for a big trip to his home country in East Europe, and the only reason why we didn't do it this summer was because we both started a new job and didn't have any vacations yet. The plan was to go with his parents and his brothers. We were also supposed to go visit other relatives about 2 weeks ago, and I asked him if we should look into dates in the summer of 2024, just so we could plan the trip with his family. He then changed his mind about the trip because it was way too expensive, even though we already had the money set aside. So I do not understand the logic behind that. When I tell him about how cheap he is, he keeps saying that we do not have the jobs that allow us to do these kinds of activities. We both work full-time with a salary of $24 an hour for him and $25 an hour for me. I'm also completing my degree by December and have a huge raise at work, but when I mention it to add to the point of us being able to do such projects, he doesn't even acknowledge it. When I ask him why he's being so cheap, he says that his parents didn't get to go travel or do fun stuff when he was younger, and this is when they just immigrated, and that they're only now able to do that 10 years later. His parents are 50 years old, by the way, so I confronted him about not wanting to wait 25 more years just to start enjoying life, but he keeps bringing this point up over and over again. Today, I picked him up from school, and I asked him if he could get a pack of celery since I went grocery shopping for tonight's supper, and I forgot celery myself. He said no because celery was too expensive, and at this point, I'm honestly losing it, and I seriously don't know what to do. Okay, first and foremost, why is he the boss of your finances? It sounds like you make more money than him first and foremost, so I'm kind of scratching my head here. Why does he have the final say on what you do with your money? Like seriously, you can only buy a bra or get celery if he approves it? What is going on right now? I think the bigger question here, aside from him being so stingy with his money, is basically the question of, well, why is he able to do this? The way he's being really controlling with the finances is so far out of line. That is a much bigger situation, in my opinion, than him trying to claim that he's tight with money. Right now, this is a control issue, and that is so inappropriate. I mean, it really does sound like you have two separate bank accounts, and if I were you, I would keep it that way. Can you imagine how he's gonna act if all of your money is in the same account? He would probably turn into this giant jerk. Like seriously, there's no way. Like think about it, all these small things you have to run by him just to try and have like the small necessities in your life. That, in my opinion, is completely inappropriate and so absurd. So seriously, your boyfriend is out of line. The way he's acting is incredibly controlling and very manipulative. And in my opinion, his weird desire to have a lot of control over your finances is a much bigger deal than you probably realize. My wife has secretly racked up over $16,000 in credit card debt. And right now, I feel utterly betrayed, and I seriously don't know what to do. So as the title suggests, my wife racked up over $16,000 in credit card debt without my knowledge. Now, I suspected that something was up because she didn't have a job for most of the year and was spending money like she did when she had one. I would try to talk to her about her credit card balance, which would then basically lead to her becoming irate. She would snub me off and tell me it's none of my business, even though we're married and legally speaking, her debt is my debt. But last night, I finally confronted her about it, and after a long, grueling argument, she finally told me how much of a balance was on one of her cards. It was about $10,000. Now, she said that's all there was, and I asked her if she was lying, and she swore that she wasn't. Well, guess what? She absolutely was lying. The next morning, we had another conversation, and this time I pressed her further, and slowly she started revealing one by one all of the details about her debt, and it all added up to over $16,000, including the $10,000 from earlier. Right now, I honestly feel betrayed by my partner. I am a financially responsible person who has many credit cards and never paid a single penny in interest. I am currently the only breadwinner of the family, and basically, I'm picking up her slack to try and keep my family afloat. I'm saving for retirement, and I'm making investment decisions. She is going back to school, and I was more than happy to support her in that, but after finding this out, it feels like a huge breach of trust. This whole time, I thought the only debt we were in was from our mortgage and student loans that she has, but credit card debt is literally so crippling, and it's not like student loans or a mortgage at all. I'm flabbergasted by the fact that while I was supporting us and making the right decisions to set us up for success in the future, my wife was literally digging us into a hole. She clearly did not have it under control and did not feel like she could ask for help or let me know what was going on. This whole time, I thought we were doing well for our age, as well as the money that we had as a couple, but this feels like a huge punch in our financial and personal relationship. I don't know what to do, and at this point, I'm questioning my decision in choosing my partner. Okay, first and foremost, this is awful. I can't believe that she would hide this kind of money from you and try to keep this a secret. Like $16,000 in debt is seriously a massive amount of money, and that's not something that just happens overnight. Like, that's a conscious decision to be like, okay, let's keep spending. So personally, if I was in your shoes, I would definitely be saying, okay, well, school's off the table. We need to start paying off this debt before anything else. And with that in mind, in my opinion, it's probably time for her to get a job. Like, she needs to start working to pay off this debt. This is seriously not okay. You can't just have that and then expect your partner to bail you out. Because here's this guy trying to make good decisions for his family, only for his wife to literally stab him in the back. Like, that's exactly what happened in my opinion. So hopefully some kind of solution can be found from this, because what you're describing right now sounds like an absolute nightmare. And I seriously don't blame you for feeling betrayed. Am I the jerk for canceling dinner plans with my parents after they practically tried to replace me? Here's what happened. Now, I first want to start off by saying that I'm still pretty upset about what happened, but I'll try to explain my story very clearly. I'm a 28-year-old female that made a pretty dumb decision roughly 9 years ago when I decided to elope with my then boyfriend by the name of Mike. Mike is not his real name. My parents hated Mike from the start. They thought that he was a user. I thought they were meddling too much in my business, so with Mike's encouragement, I went completely no contact with them. They tried repeatedly to get back in contact with me for the next 3 or so years, but I entirely shut them out and didn't communicate with them at all. After Mike dumped me roughly 4 years after we eloped, almost 5 years ago from today, I was in a pretty rough place. It seemed like years where I was just wandering between pointless relationships and dead-end jobs. Fast forward to this year, and I feel that I finally have some stability in my life. In late August, I decided to reach out to my parents again and reconnected with my mom online. She and my dad were both thrilled and invited me over for dinner. I accepted and planned on meeting with them this weekend. As the date came closer, I started looking at my parents' social media accounts and kept seeing the same woman and her family in so many pictures with my parents. She was literally on vacation with my parents, and I even saw my parents with her at her wedding. Even worse, later pictures showed that she had 3 kids and was referring to my own parents as her kids' grandma and grandpa. Yesterday, I called my mom and asked her about this lady, and she said that she was a family friend who they met about 5 years ago. She told me that she and my dad became really close with her and her family and considered them to be relatives. I was shocked by this and I felt pretty emotional. So I then told my mom that just because I was away, that didn't mean that her and my dad had permission to essentially replace me. My mom denied this and said that I couldn't be replaced. I told her that she was clearly lying based on what those kids were calling her and my dad. My mom started crying, saying that I was blowing things out of proportion, but I eventually hung up. That evening, my dad called me and he sounded pretty angry. He said that I had made a pretty active decision to be an idiot and run off, and because of that, I didn't have a right to criticize him and my mom for going on with their lives. He mentioned how they tried repeatedly to get in contact with me, but that I kept on keeping them at a distance. I tried to argue with him, saying that we'd never be in this situation in the first place if they had been more supportive of me and Mike, but he said that was irrelevant now. I was so angry with him at this stage, so I told him that I would not be coming over. He said that was fine since I couldn't be trusted to act like an adult. So am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? I have to say it, yes, you are absolutely the jerk here. How on earth can you really expect your parents to not move on with their lives? First and foremost, you did run off with Mike. You ran away and tried to have a life with him, all while choosing to go no contact with your parents. And yes, that was a choice. It wasn't a choice because your parents were meddling in your business. It was a choice that you made because you didn't like the fact that your parents were right about Mike. And guess what? They absolutely were right. Your parents saw exactly the kind of person he was, and when he broke up with you, you finally saw it yourself. I mean, think about it for a second. You disappeared for half a decade. They tried everything to get in contact with you. They tried repeatedly to try and make amends, to find you back in their lives. But you decided to walk out. And then 5 years down the line, you conveniently come back when you realize that you were in the wrong. And you're upset that your parents moved on with their lives? Like, seriously, what did you expect? Your parents lost their daughter to some stupid loser who had no good intentions with with you in mind. Like if there's anybody you should be mad at right now, it's your ex-boyfriend Mike. He's the one that basically ruined everything for you. So yes, overall, you are absolutely the jerk. Your parents did the best they could to reach out, but you were too stubborn to come back into their lives. And unfortunately, that is nobody's fault except for your own. Am I the jerk for not wanting to visit my family simply because I would not be able to afford the trip? Here's what happened. So my dad works as a tow truck driver. He is always on call day and night. When not working, he's either sleeping or he's hooking up with a new girlfriend. My dad sticks with one girl for a few years and then just moves on. The one he's currently with has kids, and I don't want to see him play daddy to some random kids when he couldn't be there for me, my brothers, and sister. I moved out a couple of years ago with my boyfriend, and ever since then, I have not visited my family out of either choice or affordability. I work in retail, so I do not earn a lot of money to afford a vacation and save for rent. The last time I took a few days off of work, and I did not earn enough money to make rent in time, and we were nearly evicted from our apartment. A couple months ago, my family had a birthday party for my dad and was asking me if I was going to come. I unfortunately was not able to take time off of work, and I simply couldn't afford to do so either. Last night, my dad called me wanting to arrange a vacation for next summer and had the whole family over to stay together for Disneyland and several other events. Now, I told him that I would try, but a few hours later, my mom calls me and tells me that dad complained to her, saying that I broke his heart by not promising to go. I told her I was going to try and save up. I have my phone bill, I have my car payment, my cable bill, my rent, electricity, but with all that in mind, I was told that I was being a jerk for not promising to come and visit. So what do you think? Am I the jerk for not visiting, even if I can't afford to do so? What should I do? Honestly, you don't owe anybody any kind of explanation. Like if they can't understand that you're trying to save up money to go and have some kind of vacation with your family, then honestly, that's on them, not you. Like you already almost lost your house just because you went to go visit them, and you did that because you were trying to be nice or something like that. And because of that, you almost got evicted. And now the fact that they're trying to guilt trip you and be like, wow, you're not coming to visit us, you're an awful person. Like seriously, those people are idiots. They clearly do not care about your well-being as well as your financial stability in the slightest. So in my opinion, I don't think you're the jerk. I think your family are being jerks for the way they're treating you, and they're clearly just trying to guilt trip you, all because your dad isn't getting his way. My entitled friend demands to use my car whenever he wants, claiming that he has just as much of a right over it as I do. And honestly, I'm just blown away by his entitlement, as well as his complete disregard for my property. Here's what happened. So this story happened about 15 years ago, and I thought it would be nice to post it online. I had a childhood friend, we'll call him Steve, that's not his real name, and at the time he was going through a really bad breakup with a girl he had been dating for multiple years. He eventually started dating an 18-year-old by the name of Kate, also not her real name, and he did this as a rebound that he met at a party. Now Steve is 28 and Kate is 18 years old. Kate was an enormous mooch. She was always asking for handouts and never had a job as long as I knew her. Steve had gotten a DUI in his early 20s and had his license taken away as a result. I don't know the details or semantics of how it works, as I've never had a DUI and I never cared to look up how it worked, but Steve was driving someone else's car when he got the DUI. He didn't even have a car himself. So after the DUI, he never tried to get his license stuff fixed or anything like that so he could drive himself. Instead, he had his ex drive him everywhere when they were together. About a month after his breakup, his mother passed away. I started spending a lot more time with him because of this awful event. It's not like we weren't hanging out before, but it increased a lot after this. I also offered to drive him around whenever he wanted to go somewhere. This went on for months, literally almost an entire year. It got to the point where I got tired of driving him around, and I allowed Kate to drive him if he wanted to go somewhere. And this then went on for anywhere between 6 to 8 months. He was taking the bus to work at this time, but I ended up dating one of Kate's roommates. She was closer to my age, trust me, and overall just started sleeping at their place, with Steve doing the same thing. He usually got up for work 2 hours before I did, so I would let Kate drive him to work and bring my car back so that I could go to work afterwards. That is, except for one morning for some reason, he set his alarm way later than he usually did. I heard it go off not long before I was getting up to get ready for work. He told me he has enough time to make it to work on time and to get the car back to me. So I took it in stride and I trusted that he was right. So I wait for Kate to get back, and my girl at the time had to work about 30 minutes earlier than I did. So she had already left for work. So time ticks down, and I'm texting Steve and Kate and not getting any replies. It took another 30 minutes to an hour, depending on traffic, to get to my job from my girl's house. Another 10 minutes before my shift starts at work, and Kate finally strolls in with a Burger King bag. She tells me something about the drive-thru taking too long or something like that. She didn't even apologize for being late. Now, of course, it took close to an hour for me to get to work. I called my boss beforehand and told them the situation, and trust me when I say this, they were not happy. I got a written warning at my job because I was so late. I mean, I think my boss wanted to give me a formal write-up overall. She really didn't like me, and this was just a good excuse for her to do that. Steve later on texted me a really lame apology. Something like, "Sorry you were late, but there really was enough time for you to make it if you would have just hurried up." So after that, I told Steve the next time I saw him that Kate would be no longer driving my car, and that I'm not being his taxi anymore. He then just suddenly flew off the handle at this. He started saying stuff like how I legally couldn't deny him a ride anywhere because he has a DUI on his record, and how he had just as much of a right to my car as I did. And you know what? Last time I checked, his name was not anywhere on my car, and he never made any payments for me or anything like that. So I had no idea where he was coming from on that one. He barely paid me gas money sometimes. He then started using the passing of his mother as some kind of excuse. Now here's the thing. I was very sympathetic about the whole situation, and I was there when he needed to talk or needed a ride, or just generally when he needed a friend. So I was really insulted that he even brought her into this equation. So after that, we stopped talking. Years later, we reconciled, but we weren't as close as we were before. He ended up getting married, not to Kate, by the way. Apparently that relationship ended horribly, if you could have guessed it. And I did hang out with him a few times, but then COVID hit, and I didn't really see him much anymore. Fast forward, and my dad passed away earlier this year, and I got a message on social media from his wife that was something like, "Sorry about your dad," but never at all did I get anything from him. I guess he didn't really have anything to say, but it really would have been nice since I was there for him, and he knew my dad very well. Yeah, that friend sounds like an absolute jerk. Like, first off, he absolutely was taking advantage of you. Like, the way he was acting was just super inappropriate. There's no reason for him to be like that, and honestly, the least he could have done is at least pay for gas or at least say thank you. Like, his stupid girlfriend made you late, and it almost cost you your job. Like, seriously, that's not okay. And for him to be like, "Wow, I need your car just as much as you do," that is so ridiculous, it's just not even funny. This guy has a DUI. He could never even drive the car if he wanted to. He ruined his chances at a license a long time ago, and he was too lazy to try and get it fixed. So truly, this guy was just a complete piece of work. He had no right to try and demand this car from you in the way that he did. And honestly, he was just being super inconsiderate. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for suggesting that my wife should lower her standards when it comes to being a parent? Here's what happened. So my wife and I have 3 kids, a 12-year-old, a 10-year-old, and an 8-year-old. My wife is 37 years old and I am 38 years old. She is in a constant state of overwhelm and very easily irritated, constantly complaining how it's all too much. I'm of course happy to help and do my fair share for the kids or the household, but it's never enough because her standards are way too high. For example, she insists that one of us has to be up at 6:45 every single morning just to make sure the kids are ready and that they make the bus, which comes in at 7:45. I told her that they're old enough to not need that much help already. They can all dress themselves and pour themselves cereal and milk. There's no reason we have to be up. But she says that cereal isn't a good enough breakfast. They need something more substantial, especially the 12-year-old, and that the 10-year-old has ADHD and will definitely struggle without help in the morning. And on top of that, she wants to see them off and kiss them goodbye for the day. So she gets up, but I don't. And then she gets upset that I never give her a morning off when all she needs to do is just take the morning off when she wants and let the kids handle themselves. Also, she is super strict about screen time during the week, and it's exhausting. And she gets snappy from arguing about it with the kids and upset that I don't support her strict limit of 2 hours a day. I say as long as homework is done, why not just enjoy it until bedtime? She says that it's not healthy for them. They need to play outside or with games and toys. They need to read some books or just entertain themselves in more ways than one. I agree that they should enjoy other things, but I'm not seeing why we have to make such a rigid limit. She also likes to get out on weekends and do stuff like zoos and museums, but then complains about planning for the outing and how grouchy the youngest gets by the end of it. And again, I say let's just chill at home and voila, you've cut the work. Listen, I'm an engaged and active overreactive parent. I'm not trying to get out of it, but I don't think I should have to help my wife dig herself out of her own self-created holes. She creates the stress for herself and then turns to me to alleviate it, to which I think is completely unfair. Am I the jerk here for telling her that she needs to do less and then she won't need to have this level of help? What should I do? I really don't think your wife is asking for that much. Like, your wife's standards are not that extreme. Like, she just wants to be a decent parent, which honestly, that is exactly what she's doing. She wants to feed her kids right. She doesn't want them to have extreme levels of screen time on their tablets or devices, and she wants to do stuff on the weekends, like go to zoos and museums. Like, honestly, she sounds like an amazing parent. So with that in mind, why are you at least not trying to see things from her point of view? Like, your attitude is so lazy, and you're so combative with your wife for literally like no reason, as if everything she does is like automatically annoying you. That, in my opinion, absolutely makes you the jerk in this situation, because the way you're going about this is honestly really unfair. Like, it really seems like your wife is the only one actively engaged in your kids' lives. And on the opposite end of the spectrum, you would rather sleep in and let your kids figure their lives out. Like, seriously, come on. Those kids are gonna remember how you would rather sleep than spend time with them. If this really did go down your way, they would never know what it's like for their dad to say, hey, have a good day at school, or anything like that. Like, come on, they're kids. At least pretend to show some kind of effort, and you can bet that they're seeing exactly the way you're acting. They know what's going on. They see that you would rather sleep in and spend time at home, as opposed to giving them some kind of, like, I don't know, experience in life. I don't know, it just really seems like your wife is trying to be a good parent, and you, for some reason, are being extremely resentful towards that. And that fact alone really makes you seem like the jerk in this situation. But that's just my opinion. What do you think? Do you think the original poster has a point here, or do you think they should do a lot more as a parent? Leave a comment down below. We would love to hear what you have to say. Am I the jerk for not giving up my seat on the bus, as well as embarrassing a woman who was demanding to take my seat? Here's what happened. A few years ago, I lost my left leg in an accident. I've been using a prosthetic leg since then, and because my family is well off, it is a pretty advanced one, to the point where it looks like I just have two normal legs whenever I wear long trousers, which I usually do because I'm really self-conscious about showing my prosthetic. These days, I can pretty much do anything I like without issues. I can go walking, running, I can go upstairs, etc. The main issue is keeping my balance when there are sudden changes in movement, and this is in places like trains or buses, which is where the topic of this post comes in. I was riding the train and sat down in the seat reserved for disabled people, as well as people who are elderly or pregnant women, and it was pretty busy, so there were no other seats available. A few stops later, a woman came up to me telling me I needed to move because she needs that seat and I shouldn't be sitting there. I told her I was sorry, but I needed the seat myself. She got all argumentative that I just need to get up because the seat is meant for the elderly, and I'm just a lazy child who is more than capable of standing. I again apologized and said that I really needed the seat myself. She then left and got the train conductor, who also told me to get up from the seat. I was really done with being treated this way, so I rolled up my trouser leg, showed my prosthetic, and told her that I wasn't going to move. She suddenly got very red-faced and mumbled something before she got off at the next station. So am I the jerk in this situation? I could have just said I have a prosthetic right away, but it is really a touchy subject for me, and it makes me feel very self-conscious. And that's why I wear long trousers, so nobody can see or has to know. So should I have handled this differently? What should I do? Yeah, that's really inappropriate for that lady to jump to that kind of conclusion. Literally, everybody's built differently, and you shouldn't have to like explain to anybody why you're sitting in the seat you were sitting in. It should just be a given that, hey, if I'm sitting here, it means that I need to sit here, not because I just want a free quick seat that I can just jump in. Like, unless it's some like obvious punk kid or just some jerk who clearly is not disabled, then I think it's safe to assume that if somebody's sitting in the handicapped seating, then there is a really good reason behind why they're sitting there. So for her to make that request and then just straight up ignore your answer and be like, no, you're just being entitled, that is, in my opinion, so unbelievably toxic and so uncalled for. There are so many people who have invisible disabilities where you really would not know from the outside looking in that there might be something going on that would require them having special assistance. And this, in my opinion, is one of those cases. So truly, you are not the jerk in this situation. You handled this correctly and you put that lady in her place. And you can bet in the future, after that public humiliation, she is not going to try that with anybody ever again. Am I the jerk for turning around and going back to my parents' house after my husband let his homeless brother into my home and as a result give everybody in the house head lice? Here's what happened. So I recently went to stay with my parents and my newborn. It was just for a long weekend weekend, so my husband stayed home with our 3 older children. My husband called me when I was out of town to let me know his brother needed a place to crash. I said that he should give him a ride to a shelter or something like that because it was a bad idea to let his brother in our home. He has stolen from us before, after all. When I got home, there were 5 very itchy people in the house. I immediately got back in my car and went to my parents' house. My husband was calling me the whole time because he needed help dealing with the lice that had come into my house. I did not call him back until the baby was settled back in at my folks' place. I told him the pharmacy had the shampoo and comb for the lice, but he said that he needed me to come home and take care of it, but I literally refused. I said that he'd let his brother in our home against my wishes. His brother gave them all lice. I also reminded him that when our oldest got lice from kindergarten, he didn't help me at all. Now, I hate lice. They freak me out, and I dealt with it because I had to. This time though, it's on him. He said that he would have to use up his sick days just to take care of this, and I said to him, well, tough cookies. But eventually he did it. He took his brother to a shelter, he de-liced himself and the kids, and then he spent 3 days cleaning all the bedding and the furniture. He called me every day begging for help, but I did not come home until his mother confirmed that everything was done. He is angry that I stuck him with all of that by himself. I know I should have helped, but it was way too much, and I'm still not 100% from the baby. So was it too much? Should I have stepped in and tried to help him out? Am I the jerk here? What should I do? Honestly, you didn't stick him with anything. He literally brought this onto himself by letting his lice-infested homeless brother stay at their house, all against your wishes. You literally said, hey, you gotta take him to a shelter. He cannot come into our home. Like, seriously, what was he thinking? He put everybody in harm's way, and he caused a massive headache for literally everybody involved. So honestly, I don't blame you for a second. This is not only unbelievably unsafe for a newborn, but it's also disgusting. There is no good reason for him to have done this. Look, I get it. His brother's homeless, and he needs help. But with that help comes some basic hygiene, as well as getting himself cleaned up in the proper place. And a homeless shelter absolutely would have been a good first step. Like, literally, this is just the consequences of his actions. So in my opinion, I don't think you're the jerk. Your husband brought this on himself, and honestly, he has nobody else to blame except for himself. An entitled neighbor screams at me and my husband as we were trying to service a yard close to his house, and I've never been more blown away by somebody's entitlement in my life. Here's what happened. So I own a small landscaping business with my husband. This morning, we show up at our job with our truck and trailer for a day of weeding at a long neglected property. It's trash day in the neighborhood, and in order to back the trailer in, I have to get out of the truck to move 2 garbage cans that are in the way. So I move them both like a foot off the road with the intention of moving them back afterwards. I then move behind the trailer to guide my husband into the parking spot, and we needed to do it this way because it's very narrow. My husband gets out of the truck, and we both look at the ocean as the waves are massive due to an impending storm. We're talking like maybe 10 feet high. Surfers are whipping out all over the place, and it's quite a sight. And I counted maybe about 60 surfers in total on my lunch break. Now, 10 seconds into looking at the ocean, the neighbor comes out and starts screaming at us, complaining about how the garbage truck driver can't see the cans, and asked us what in the world we were doing. And when I say he was screaming, I mean screaming. This guy chose violence and was looking to intimidate. I calmly responded that I was about to move the cans back, and I was just first looking at the ocean for a little bit. Now, this guy seemed slightly embarrassed and muttered something like, whatever, I'll just move them, don't bother. Well, 1 hour later, this guy catches my husband going to the truck and asks if he can put his lawn clippings in our trailer so that we could take them to the dump with our other debris. No apology, no introductions, and acting as if nothing happened and he didn't scream at us. My husband was taken aback in the moment and said yes, even though this is something we normally charge for. 30 minutes after that, he walks onto the property that we are working at and says he just pruned a juniper and asked if he could put those clippings in there too. So I responded by saying, sure, if you throw in a $20 bill. He just laughs and says, are you kidding? You're going to the dump anyways, right? To which I responded by saying, yes, and not only do they charge us by weight, but this is our job, and taking debris to the dump is a service we offer, and guess what? We'll do it for $20. He then laughs again and says, they charge by weight? My debris weighs nothing. He then huffs off and comes back with a $20 bill. He was so mad, he wouldn't even look at me in the eyes when he handed the money over. My guess is that he thought we'd just say yes, and he had already cut the juniper before asking, and then didn't have a way of getting rid of it. Because, you know, there's no way he could have put it in one of his 2 BMWs just to try and drive it over to where he can get rid of it, and he definitely simply didn't want it laying around at his $4 million beach house. Another short while later, he catches my husband and tries to find out which dump we go to because the one he suspects we go to doesn't charge by weight. But guess what? That's the wrong dump. And also, it doesn't matter. We charge what we charge. Like seriously, my guy, you don't have to say yes to us taking your debris. We decide our rates, and this is what we charge. Take it or leave it. You literally came to us. We're not going door to door asking for people's yard clippings. There is a minimum charge of $25 at the dump no matter how much you have. So honestly, we were saving this guy $5 as well as a trip to the dump. And hopefully, if we ever come back to that property, this guy just straight up leaves us alone. Yeah, people who act like that are so obnoxious. It makes it difficult to even be around them. First and foremost, they're super entitled and they're super rich. And it's not like just because you have money, you're somehow suddenly entitled. But at least in my experience in life, it really does seem like a lot of rich people are very entitled. And this guy just takes the cake. He's like, here you go, take my debris to the dump. It's like, buddy, come on, you gotta pay for that. Like seriously? This is not a charity. So good for you for getting this guy to pay you your money. He was being very rude and super entitled. And honestly, no one deserves to get treated like that in the slightest. I got a parking ticket for a spot I paid for. And despite the fact that I showed evidence that I paid for this spot, the parking garage refused to give me my money back. So I decided to get some revenge. Here's what happened. So about 10 or so years ago, I went to a concert an hour away from me in Indianapolis. I decided to make a day of it, going to several museums and spots around the city, each time paying for parking in a garage for 2 or so hours, then going to meander around the area. Finally, I go park close to the venue and paid for parking until the time came around where it was free. In total, I probably paid $40 to $50 for parking throughout the day. I enjoyed the concert, but I did come back and find a parking ticket on my car. I think to myself, this is odd, but at this point I'm tired and I just chalk it up as a mistake. But I do decide to take a photo of my parking spot as well as all of the signage surrounding it and just head home for the evening, figuring I would just sort this out in the morning. The next morning, I review my ticket, the photo of my spot, and my parking receipt. The ticket did not line up to the spot my car was located in, and my receipt shows that I had valid parking at the time of the ticket. So I submit an appeal, thinking that this will be easy. It's obvious that a mistake was made, right? Well, the appeal was denied. The ticket was for the spot that was not paid for, so in effect, it still stood. I called the office, and the lady said that they did not make a mistake, as my receipt showed that I paid for spot X1, and the ticket was for spot X. I asked about the photo proof that my car was in spot X1, and she said, well, you could have moved the car. Now, as a side note, the parking receipt included my license plate number and everything. I said that there were cars in spots on either side of me, and that the entire street was full during the concert. And honestly, I don't think they bothered to look at the photo. But even had that not been the case, I had proof that that license plate had a paid parking spot. But regardless, it didn't matter. Now, I am feeling very petty over this $25 parking ticket at this point. So I called Visa and asked if I could retract the amount I paid for the time that I had parked, since it didn't count in the slightest. I submitted all the evidence and documentation to Visa. Visa, in what was the greatest thing Visa has ever done in my opinion, agreed with me that if my parking receipt and transaction number wasn't proof that I had paid for parking, then clearly I had paid for a service I did not receive. And they extended my initial request of canceling the one transaction to include all the parking spots I had paid for. And this is through the entire system that day. They then filed a formal complaint on my behalf with a detailed letter explaining why they were refunding me. Now, I would not have been nearly as satisfied if I had not spent the entire day playing tourist in the city and racking up a large parking bill all at the same vendor. But honestly, with all things considered, these people absolutely had it coming. Yeah, these people were massive jerks. Like seriously, there's no reason for them to act that way. Like you took a detailed picture and you had obvious evidence that yeah, I paid for this spot, but they seriously wanted to act like no, you didn't. You could have moved your car around. Come on, you're lying. Like seriously, these people absolutely had it coming. And that's a first to have like a credit card type company be like, yeah, no, you're right. Let's get back at these people. So truly good for you for getting back at these idiots for basically charging you for nothing. They clearly made a mistake and they were clearly just trying to scam you out of your money. An entitled couple tried to cheat me out of my contracting job, taking my prices and literally changing them on the page I gave them, all under the assumption that I wouldn't see it so that they could get a discount on their new home they wanted me to build. And I've honestly never been more blown away by somebody's entitlement in my life. Here's what happened. So I was working with a couple to renovate their home in New York City. They They had narrowed down their search to myself and one other person, with me being the preferred client and the other being the more budget option. I gave these clients my detailed spreadsheet of how much everything would cost so that they could use it to pick and remove the non-essentials in hopes of getting closer to the number they wanted. And they had so many luxuries, it really shouldn't have been that hard to do. Well, a few days later, they both call me announcing that they've done it, and they said this in a celebratory manner. Now, my price as designed was almost $1.7 million. If I removed every single non-essential item, I could get the budgets down to $1.2 million. So I opened the sheet, and they had somehow got down to $955,000. I looked through it briefly and see literally nothing has been removed. So we are about $600,000 or more lower to build the same house. So I call the client to ask if I have the right spreadsheet, and the wife answers and says, "Oh, sorry, maybe not, I'll resend it." They resend it, and we remain on the phone to go through it together. But guess what? It's the same thing, same pricing, same sheet. I tell the client I'll call her back, and I open up the original sheet and I put it side by side, as I can't really see what's changed initially. But I finally saw what happened about a minute later. The first thing I notice is the fancy $7,000 archway, which in the spreadsheet was closer to $10,000, with all the markups included, but the base price was $7,250. They had simply gone to that number and changed it to $1,750. I keep looking, and they have gone through the whole spreadsheet and done this. Another example of this is that they wanted this custom railing as well as a staircase on this exterior metal deck. This was an item they were to remove based on our conversations. This particular service was $25,000 or so, but they changed it to $8,000. And trust me when I say this, there were so many other examples besides this one. I call the client still incredibly confused, and I'm thinking to myself, okay, maybe they didn't want to spend $10,000 on the fancy archway, so they thought maybe we could do it for $2,000 instead or something like that. But when I asked them what happened, I was honestly amazed by their entitlement, as they said things that I seriously never expected. The client said to me, "We just adjusted some numbers until we came up with our budget." So I said to them, okay, to be clear then, in the areas you've lowered my numbers, you're expecting less, correct? For example, with the archway, you want me to just put regular trim detail there, or whatever $1,750 can buy, right? At this point, the client sounded confused. No, we still want the archway. Why? I say to them, hang on, you're still expecting the details as they're drawn in the bid sheet? And it's right about then that the husband joined the call. The client said, yes, why? And they sounded really confused, or they were just doing a good job of acting confused. I asked them again, so you haven't removed any items, you've just lowered the price to what exactly? And at this point, the client still didn't get it. So I said to them, maybe I'm not being clear, so I'll use an analogy then. I've said I'm going to cook you a burger with all the trimmings for $10. You guys have given me $6, so I've said to you, hey, here's my menu. Go ahead and remove the bacon and the egg and see if we can still get a price that you're happy with. But it seems like you just changed the price of the burger on the menu to $5 without removing anything from that. Am I correct in assuming that? Now at this point, the client's tone changes for the first time ever. They go from upbeat and excited to literally your evil stepmother. Oh, I see. Yes, well, we looked through a lot of your pricing, and we just don't see how they could cost what you've quoted, so we changed them to where we thought they should be. Now, I was, up until this point, wondering if they're stupid or manipulative, and it was at this moment I realized it was the second one. I said to them, based on what? The client then responded by saying, what? So I said it again. What did you base your numbers on? How did you decide what they should be? The client then said, I guess we just thought about what was reasonable and what we thought was fair for everyone. Now, as a side note, nothing induces rage in me quicker than a client talking about paying me fair. I responded by saying, okay, look, this is really inappropriate. I gave the sheet over in good faith for you to review what could be removed or retained, but it was not so you could decide what you wanted to pay. The pricing in there is truly reflective on what I can do the job for in a way that allows for minimal price changes and allows me to be in business afterwards to honor your warranty. The client then said, we just don't get how these things can cost so much. Now, in that moment, I then see at the bottom my profit margin of 15%, which was standard in the area that I work in. But they had changed that as well to 5%, so we're talking about $100,000. I said to them, guys, you changed my profit margin. You can't do that. It's not a negotiation. It's an offer to perform services. I then said to them, okay, I need some time to consider my next move here. The client, sensing that they were losing me, they said to me, we're seeing this as a partnership. You could use this house as a showroom for future clients. So I responded by saying, I see every job as a partnership, but ultimately it's your house. Almost all of my old clients allow me to show their home. I get invited for dinners regularly, as well as for birthdays, and I would love for you guys to be a part of that, but I can't pay $500,000 to do that here. Listen, my pricing is set. I've put my best foot forward, and if you want to work with me, I'm going to build you a wonderful home. So as always, please reach out if you have any questions. Now fast forward, and they ended up hiring a contractor who agreed to their pricing and their scope. When he calls to let me know they were going with the other guy, which was 3 weeks after he was supposed to, I said, listen, no hard feelings, but you have my spreadsheet. You can see the job's raw cost, and it is $300,000 lower than that number. Be careful. He just replied by saying, it'll be fine, and he said this in a smug kind of manner. Now for context, they needed the job completed in 8 months, and this is not an easy job to do in New York City. But 2 years later, I ran into the architect, and the clients were still not yet moved in, and they were living in an Airbnb with almost double the budget and lawyers involved with the contractor. Now, I never take pleasure in others suffering, especially in New York City, but it was hard to not feel a small sense of I told you so. I truly believe when they called saying that they'd done it, I think they were hoping I'd write the contract and not notice, and that in and of itself is truly insulting. Wow, those people were so entitled. I can't imagine taking a contractor's spreadsheet with all of their prices listed so obviously and being like, okay, we're gonna change all of this, including the profit margin. Like, are you kidding me right now? That is insanely unethical, and seriously, that would have been a game changer for me. I would have immediately been like, no, there's no way I'm working with you guys. And I think the original poster was right. They were probably thinking, oh, this guy's not gonna notice, we can pull a fast one. Like, seriously, they are massive scumbags. That is so dishonest and so disgusting. So truly, karma definitely bit them right in the rear end, because based on the way they were trying to shortchange this contractor, they absolutely had this coming. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My sister and dad are constantly double teaming me, and they're always calling me emotional and angry, despite the fact that I uprooted my life just to take care of my dad. And at this point, with all things considered, I seriously don't know what to do. My dad, who's elderly and has health issues, has been needing help for the last year or so, and this is because of his increased health issues. I have been essentially a full-time caregiver for him. I temporarily moved in with him and put my life on hold to be here and to take care of his needs. I have had issues with him in the past, as he can have narcissistic traits, and at times he has been very demeaning towards me, while at other times he is seemingly appreciative. My older sister, who's 33 years old, lives about 20 minutes away. She does once in a while cook him a meal or ask if I need help with an errand of some kind, but for the most part, she comes over Sundays and we go to brunch, and she'll mainly spend time with my dad. This past week, we dealt with a pest issue in the basement. We had a problem with some flies, and there were hundreds of them all over the floor. On Friday, I had to call multiple pest control companies, get estimates, see if anybody could do some day work, and finally, I reached someone who came out that night and told me that he would spray it if need be for the new insects, but I would have to clean up the old ones. So Friday night, I vacuumed the floor, I cleaned everything, but there were still some hard to reach areas for the vacuum that I figured I would ask my sister to help me out with. So I asked her to do it for me on Sunday when she comes in. She said she's seeing her friend Sunday, but can't come in the morning to help. I told her that I thought moving the desk would be the best solution to get the bugs that she could potentially see and need to take care of. But I also said that I need a break from it because I've been dealing with it all since Friday, and I would like her to help out. She responded by saying that I shouldn't have to do it all myself. Well, fast forward to today, and she had told me that she would be here between 10:30 and 11 o'clock a.m. At 9:50 a.m., I go out to get coffee and do an errand. But at 10 o'clock, she calls me and says, I'm here, where are you? I said that she's there early, and that I'm grabbing coffee, but that she can go ahead and just get started. She then responded by saying, no, I'll just wait for you since you said you needed help moving the desk. I told her there's no point in waiting, and that she can just start cleaning, and if she needs my help when I get back, I can do that. She then said in response, so you had me come all the way over here because you just don't want to do it? At this point, I was so mad. I said to her, I've been dealing with it for hours since Friday. She then gaslit me by saying that she won't talk to me if I raise my voice, which I didn't. I was reacting to the false information she just said. She then hung up on me. I went home to find her still there talking to Dad. dad. I told her she was totally out of line with me on the phone. She then pretended to act calm, and as if she didn't even say anything rude on the phone in front of my dad. The problem is that my dad is completely scared of her and losing his relationship with her because she has distanced herself from him in the past when he has been rude to her. So he basically tried to tell me several times that I am out of line and didn't tell her once that she should be helping, even though he knows for a fact that she doesn't help. She started screaming at me at the top of her lungs, telling me to shut up, and then saying that I shouldn't raise my voice at her, even though I didn't. And he just basically sat there and let it happen. And then when I responded, he told me to calm down and be quiet. I am absolutely infuriated right now. I feel completely disrespected by both of them. I do the bulk of the work and I get zero credit. She comes over once in a blue moon, and when I actually ask her to do something, this is what happens. My dad is completely scared of rocking the boat with her, so he basically lets me take the brunt of when she starts acting like this, and he acts like I'm in the wrong. The crazy part is that when she leaves in a bit, he's basically going to expect me to make his meals and do everything for him, and I'm feeling so disrespected that I don't feel as though I want to do any of that. Now, honestly, I was very hesitant to actually move in with him in the first place, all because of his narcissistic tendencies, and he has been verbally awful to me at times. However, I let the aspect of him needing help affect me, and so I decided to move in with him. But fast forward to now, and it's been extremely difficult, as he is very unappreciative a lot of the time for what I do. He doesn't have any humility, and he makes me out to be emotional and angry. At this point, my sister has been out of a job for over a year, and doesn't come over to help that often. She and I get along some of the time, but most of the time she can be very dismissive of me. Fast forward to today, and I'm helping my dad out with getting some things. And then we get back and I'm cooking him dinner for tonight. I start making swordfish, and I could hear my sister call him, and they began talking ill of me. My dad would say stuff like, "Yeah, she's so mean to me. She yells at me all the time, and let me just tell you about what happens to me every single day. We wake up and then she gets me my breakfast and medicine, but then she just goes off to get her own coffee. She barely helps me. She only does laundry multiple times a week." And this goes on and on. I overhear this conversation, and for the first few minutes I try to let it go, even though it was really bothering me. I could even hear my sister chiming in and agreeing, because she's upset after the other day when I basically was honest with her about the fact that I don't feel like I can ever get any help from her. My dad continues to talk ill about me for literally 30 minutes. I start to really not be able to handle it well. I'm in here cooking his meal while he has the audacity to talk bad about me to my sister, while they both have narcissism. For context, my mom passed away about 3 years ago in December, and it's been very hard not having her here. I was extremely close with her, and she was similar to myself in a lot of ways. While I continue to hear the phone conversation, I basically then go in the room and interrupt it, making it very clear that I'm not happy with how they've been speaking about me. My sister hangs up the phone, and then I tell my dad that he is awful, and I basically had an emotional reaction to what he was saying. I told him that he's a jerk, and that he is slapping the hand that feeds him. I have been there for over half a year helping him, and yet he has the audacity to talk ill about me to my sister, who hasn't done anything for him in the slightest. After this all happened, or in the middle of it rather, she called him back, and then he answered and said to her, "Yeah, she's still yelling at me," and then he hung up the phone. Usually my sister comes on Sundays, but I am so incredibly uncomfortable right now, and I feel as though I was grouped up on. I don't feel comfortable because I've been helping, and for them to be talking badly about me as gossip because they both have that in them, honestly, I just don't know what to do here. I also don't know how I'm going to get through Sunday at this point. How am I supposed to see the two of them when I feel this way? The problem is also that I gave up my apartment to be here. I am trying desperately to find another place, but it is really difficult. What should I do? Honestly, I seriously don't blame you for getting out of that place. Like, honestly, that is so inappropriate and it's so ridiculous. First and foremost, your dad is absolutely ungrateful for your work. You literally uprooted your life to take care of him. You have gone over and above what you would normally have to do as a child just to take care of your dad and make sure his needs are met. And what does he do? He literally turns around and talks garbage about you. He says all these horrible things and is like, "Oh yeah, she doesn't do anything to help me," all while claiming that you're angry all the time and you're emotional, when in reality, you're just getting upset because of your stupid sister as well as your stupid dad. I totally understand that it took a lot of guts just to move in the first place, but seriously, you deserve so much more than this. These people do not care about you in the slightest. They are taking advantage of your kindness and your willingness to help out your dad. And if I was in your shoes, kind of like how you're doing this right now, I would be be making an exit strategy to get out of there and move on with your own life. He clearly does not care about you in the slightest, and it's obvious that he only uses you to get stuff done in his life. And that is so disrespectful and so completely inappropriate. Am I the jerk for thinking that my son's house truly was an open invitation, meaning that we could come over whenever we needed to? Here's what happened. So Hurricane Lee is the thing that our governor and the news media has been warning our state about for the past week. I am taking care of my special need grandson who is nonverbal. During the transition of having my grandson live with me, I had to install the internet as he does need his tablet. My grandson's parents are out of the picture and he is going through a really difficult transition. Whenever I have lost power, my daughter-in-law has always told me that I have an open invitation to their house. They also, on the plus side, have a generator. They say that I can come over anytime, even if I had power. I'm welcome there anytime. So now remember the situation I'm in. I have no power, no internet connection, and no Wi-Fi phone service. So I packed an overnight bag for my autistic grandson, along with food that he likes to eat. I mean, I don't know how long we're going to be without power. I show up and my daughter-in-law is quiet. She tells me that my 40-year-old son had to take their two youngest sons out so she can have some alone time. I apologized that we messed up her time, and I asked her if she had everything running on the generator, and she said no. After her movie and her alone time, she does a few things and hides in her bedroom. Now, this is the first time that she met her nephew, and she showed no interest on her part to even get to know him. My son called me while I was at their house and said that today was my daughter-in-law's alone time and said I shouldn't just show up without calling. I told him I have no power, I have no Wi-Fi, I've got nothing. He then just hung up on me after I told him, and I was kind of scratching my head. I thought this was an open invitation. He tells me by texting that McDonald's has Wi-Fi, and by the time he comes home, he is shutting off his power to his house so that no Wi-Fi can be used by his nephew. He has his two other sons sneak upstairs and not talk to me while we're sitting in the dark. I used the flashlight on my phone to go upstairs and say goodnight to my grandsons. As I got upstairs, my daughter-in-law tells the boys to be quiet. I told my grandsons goodnight and I gave them each a hug and a kiss. And I'm being told that I'm winding up my grandsons, even though it's 7:30 p.m. They eventually kicked us out in the rain with no lights on in the house to see. We were only there for a little under 2 hours, and my lights came back on by that time at my address. Normally when we lose power, it's for several days. I had texted a friend and asked if she could drive by my residence because my son has lied to me in the past. My friend and her husband even offered us to come over in the middle of the night if we lost power again. So honestly, am I the jerk in thinking that my son and daughter-in-law wouldn't mind for us showing up in bad weather when we had no power? I don't think you're the jerk at all. It honestly kind of blows my mind that they acted like this at all. They seriously turned off the Wi-Fi and the power just to chase the two of you out the door. Like seriously, they are massive jerks. Also, this is an emergency situation. Your alone time can wait. We literally have no power and no electricity. Like seriously, don't say that this is an open invitation to your house and then turn around and be like, well, not today at least. This is my alone time. Meanwhile, a hurricane is barreling down towards you people and you want to act super selfish. So no, you're not the jerk in this situation. These people really suck. And honestly, if anything ever happens again similar to this, I would definitely plan on going somewhere else. My entitled friend is upset because I backed out on a holiday getaway, despite the fact that nothing was exclusively planned out and no payments had been made. And now she's angry with me because she's gonna have to pay more. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. So this just happened, and I'm really shocked. Like, I seriously don't even know how to respond. So for starters, me, my friend, and her friend were planning to go away for the weekend in October for a little Halloween getaway. Nothing was ever confirmed and hotels were never booked, so it wasn't completely definitive, like nothing was paid for. It was just an exciting idea. Unfortunately, I realized I can't afford to go. I have a lot of expenses to pay for over the next year, with one of those expenses being student loans. My friend mentioned the Halloween getaway tonight. I told her it's not going to work because of my upcoming expenses, and I apologized. I also told her that I feel so bad it's not going to work out. She seemed disappointed, but she seemed to understand. But also her boyfriend was there, so maybe it was just her trying to seem like she was cool and okay with it. She just texted me that she didn't want to bring it up in front of her boyfriend to make me feel awkward, but she feels like it wasn't cool that I backed out last minute. She also made me feel bad because now they have to split the cost 2 ways and not 3 ways. When I tried to clarify over text messaging, she mentioned how much I spent over dinner and that I want to go shopping in a few weeks. So according to her, I could definitely afford $65 per night for this getaway. I told her that I'm not talking about my my finances with her and that it doesn't concern her. She said she thinks it's more than me not wanting to go and said to me, "You're insulting my intelligence." Honestly, I don't even know what to say. Nothing was even booked yet, and I didn't make a payment for my half of the trip or even indicate a payment or some kind of commitment. Was I wrong for backing out? Was it too last minute, or is she in the wrong for her reaction? What should I do? Honestly, you are not at fault here. You have every right to back out of something, especially if you haven't put any money down and there were literally no plans. I mean, it's pretty clear at this point she only wanted you to go so that this trip would be cheaper for her. Like seriously, she's just trying to guilt trip you to save money. So honestly, I think you've seen true colors, and I honestly don't blame you for backing out, because she was only in it for the discount, and it really seems like she could have taken anybody with her friend on a Halloween getaway. My partner is constantly telling me that I should have cosmetic surgery just to fix some of the supposed flaws in my body that he doesn't like, and I'm now so frustrated and disgusted by his comments over the past 2 years that I now seriously don't know what to do. So my boyfriend and I have been together for 4 years now, and I really get frustrated about things that he says to me. He's been very casually talking about my appearance and telling me aspects I should fix, including things like my weight and my face. I get fed up with him and show my annoyance, and he gets upset that I get upset. Now, for some background, my boyfriend and I are both Korean, but he's a born and raised Korean, while I grew up in the US and only came back here as an adult. So there's definitely a cultural difference. He has been pretty insecure about his own appearance for a while now. He wants to bulk up like those gym bros on Instagram and constantly asks what I think about his body and if there's any difference. I see him regularly, maybe about once a week, and I tell him I can't tell a difference, but he still asks pretty much every time I see him. I also don't make any comments about his appearance, unless it's to say that he has hard muscles or has a cute little belly. I am pretty body neutral about myself, but I'm still pretty confident about my appearance. He has been casually fat shaming me for about 2 years now, as I've gained about 10 pounds since we first started dating, and he keeps making comments about how I should work harder to lose weight. Now, I do want to slim down, so I've started going back to the gym, but I also have polycystic ovary syndrome, which makes it harder for me to lose weight, which he is now aware of, by the way, and yet he still makes comments. He has also said how I should get a nose job because I have a beak-like nose, meaning that I have a slight bump on my nose. And honestly, I have no idea what he's talking about, since I honestly just don't see it. He's also been half-jokingly telling me to stop smiling because I have deepening smile lines. Yesterday, he kept saying I should get a procedure that would melt the fat on my chin so that I would have a slimmer face. Now, here's the thing. I don't care what people do regarding cosmetic procedures. I've gotten some things done and I want to do some other things. And my boyfriend has gotten a few things himself as well, and I don't shame him or tell him not to do it. However, he actively tells me things I should change, and it really annoys me. We had an argument about this about a month ago, and I told him he has to stop criticizing me, and he said that he would, but it's the same thing again. I wanted to break up with him back then because it seemed like he didn't know that the things he was saying were absolutely messed up, and he just wanted to supposedly help. But when he says that he will stop, it's all just the same thing again, and now I really think I should end it. But considering his age and how long we've been together and even agreeing on getting married together, I'm honestly afraid of breaking up, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Okay, I first want to start off by saying that I'm pretty sure like plastic surgery or cosmetic surgery in general is really popular in Korea. Like, I could be wrong, so please let me know in the comment section, but I'm pretty sure it's not nearly as taboo as it might be in other countries. But in my opinion, regardless of how open a country or culture is about cosmetic surgery, I think it's incredibly disrespectful for one partner to look at the other partner and be like, yeah, you should smile less because you're getting smile lines. By the way, you're fat. Like, seriously, what is happening right now? That is such a gross thing to say to somebody, especially your significant other. Like, what are you thinking? I cannot imagine going up to somebody that I love and describing to them all the things about their face and body that I don't like, and then saying that they should fix those things with surgery. Like, what is happening right now? You really shouldn't say that to somebody that you love, because honestly, if I was with a partner who was constantly putting me down based on my looks and telling me to get plastic surgery to fix these supposed flaws in my body, I would then be telling them to take a hike. There's no way I would put up with that for a second. And I'm honestly amazed that the original poster has put up with this for 2 years. That is crazy to me, and there's no reason you should be talked to like that. So in my opinion, this is not a good sign, and it's honestly a really big red flag, because it shows to me that your partner doesn't love you for exactly who you are, but they would rather have you look exactly how they like, just to try and appease to to what they think is attractive in their partner. So truly, your partner is an absolute jerk. They're talking to you so poorly, and that is honestly so unfair. And hopefully this behavior can be changed sooner than later. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to AmITheJerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. An entitled mom gets me fired from my daycare job after she complains that I was too hard on her son who was bullying another child. And I'm honestly so blown away by her entitlement, as well as the spineless people that I work for that cave to her demands. Here's what happened. So for a bit of context, I'm a manager for a before and after school childcare program in my local public school district. The company that I work for is privately owned, and it sort of rents out the space in the schools. I've just passed my 7th year working here. I started out when I was 15, and I've always really liked it, mainly because the school that I've been working at is the school that I went to as a kid, and it's within close walking distance. Working at that specific school is one of the main reasons that I've worked here for so long. When I became the manager, it was literally just something that was forced upon me because there was no one else to fill that role. I have always been really good at saving, and I've never asked for a raise before. I've spent my own money buying toys and supplies for the site that the higher-ups either didn't want to get or just simply didn't know what to get. I've been shortchanged on support staff for my site for the 2nd straight year, as they don't want to pay a competing starting wage with other nearby businesses. But whatever, working with children from kindergarten all the way up until 5th grade takes a lot out of you, but you do it all for them. I've always really liked my job, but the past couple of days are making me change my mind. So there I was, opening up and understaffed, with 2 staff out on vacation, 1 not showing, and 2 others coming nearly 30 minutes after school gets out because they're both high schoolers and they have to commute, drop off siblings, and whatever. Shortly after school gets out, I usually take the kids to the playground. It's one of the largest playgrounds in the district, despite being one of the smallest schools. So I am practically solo mentoring 45 kids because 1 staff has to stand at the entrance to the playground, and then a massive hill and the equipment get in the way. Then I hear a lot of yelling that one of the 1st grade girls is crying. When I get over there, the 1st grader is under some stairs crying, and I start trying to ask some questions. The 1st grader in question has some mobility issues and requires a walker to get around, and had multiple surgeries over the summer to help out. It turns out that a new kid in the program this year, a 3rd grade boy, had pushed her down, kept pushing her down, pinned her to the ground, and grabbed her neck. When I asked the 3rd grader why he did this, he said, "I don't know." And when I asked if there was a reason why he did this, he just said no. In response, I had him apologize to the 1st grader and walk 3 laps around the blacktop. And of course, I wrote up a behavior report for him to give to his parents. It was all pretty normal. That is, until I get a text from my boss if I could come into the company office to have a little chat. Apparently, the mom of the 3rd grader had called my boss and the principal of the school and had a multi-hour conversation about how I was biased and unfair to her kid. She demanded that I be removed from the site, and my boss for some reason immediately caved and said that I can pick the school that I can co-manage. So I'm essentially being demoted, told that I have to spend a lot more on commuting, be moved without advance warning, and cause the site that I have spent so much effort on have no manager for the horrible crime of doing my job. And I'm just so blown away by the entitlement of this mom as well as the ignorance of my boss. Wow, that is incredibly insane to me. They seriously sided with this 3rd grade bully who was picking on a girl who had mobility issues. She uses a walker for crying out loud. And the stupid little brat even admitted to doing it in the first place. Like, how is this even up for discussion? The kid is guilty. He absolutely did it. And if anything, he should be banned from the program altogether. Like, seriously, let me tell you something. I cannot stand when management caves like this. I've worked jobs like this before where management just doesn't have a backbone when it comes to confrontation. They cave and they're like, okay, we'll do whatever you want, when in reality, they should have defended their only employee making that place actually work. Like, seriously, this is not the fault of the original poster. They were literally just doing their job and protecting this 1st grader from this bully. I know if I was in your shoes, I would be very upset about this situation. And I would even go as far as saying, you know what, I might just find a new job. Because you do not deserve this in the slightest. Because these people literally took away something you worked so hard on. And in my opinion, they do not deserve your work ethic as well as your dedication to creating a safe environment. An entitled couple demand that everybody who shows up to their wedding pays over $2,000 just to be there. And I've never been more blown away by somebody's entitlement in my life. Here's what happened. So I first want to start off by by saying that all of the names in this story have been changed. So a friend of mine by the name of Jack was invited to a wedding, and this was the wedding of Sophia and Jeff in the United Kingdom. Jack is good friends with Jeff and has known him for a long time. The bride, Sophia, is from the USA, and Jack RSVP'd to the wedding and was absolutely delighted that his girlfriend had been invited too, even though she didn't really know the couple. A few months later, Jack received an email that stated, "Thank you so much for reserving a spot at the wedding, and thank you for helping us have the wedding of our dreams." At the bottom of the email, Jack saw a link that said, "Click here for payment." Now, he assumed that it was a link to the honeymoon fund and just went about his day. A few days later, he thought that he would just have a look to see what the link was, and it then took him through to a payment page that requested just shy of $2,000 for attendance at the wedding. He assumed this must be a scam, so he called the wedding venue to let them know. The venue then told him the following: "Sophia and Jeff thank you for your contribution to enable them to have their dream wedding." And this little bit of information was obviously only given to them after they had reserved their spot at this wedding. Jack was astounded, but because he cares about his friend, he decided to empty his entire savings to attend the wedding. But in hindsight, realized the invite of his partner was probably not as generous as he originally realized. Jack then felt that because he spent so much money to attend, he would happily take advantage of the free food and the booze and get the most expensive stuff possible. Now, cut to the wedding, and guess what? The drinks were not included. Jack and his partner had a couple of drinks, and the bill was about $30. At the end of the wedding, when Jack was checking out, he went to pay for his bar bill. The bill was the $30 plus nearly $200 extra. He was then informed by the venue that the bride and groom had requested every guest be charged this amount because this was going to be a tip for the venue. Now, it's important to note that this is in the United Kingdom, where tipping the venue is not a thing that really happens, nor does charging guests for attendance for that matter. But I mean, honestly, where would that happen in the first place at all? Jack had no money left after spending his savings for the wedding, so he literally had to negotiate a lower tip amount with the venue. After the wedding, Jack checked the cost of the venue and calculated that the cost had been spread amongst the guests, but not the bride and groom. So they had basically got a free wedding out of all of this. Not only did the bride and groom pass the ridiculous amount of money required just to have this venue in the first place over onto the guests in attendance, but after everybody had already reserved a spot at the wedding, essentially putting the venue above basically everybody else, but then they passed the cost of the tip onto the guests that attended. And they did this without telling any of them. They literally charged this on checkout. I've honestly never heard of anything so entitled in my life, and after reading some comments from Americans, as well as some comments from people from the United Kingdom, I basically am confirmed that nobody actually does this, except for someone who is incredibly entitled. Yeah, there's no way I'm paying $2,000 to show up to somebody's wedding. First off, I understand why people would be like, okay, you gotta pay to show up. You're spending a lot of money on a wedding venue, so I totally understand to some degree why you would do that, but to make it $2,000 just to show up, that is insane to me. You need to cut off maybe 2 of those zeros just to make that even reasonable. Like me personally, if I was getting married, I would not charge any money for people to show up. That's just me personally in my opinion. But if you do want to charge people to show up, $2,000 is ridiculous. And then on top of that, you have to add this sneaky stuff in where you're basically like, yeah, you're gonna have to pay for a tip as well. And by the way, that tip is $200. Like, no, that's not happening at all. I'm gonna pay for the $30 for drinks and then I'm gonna leave. And I dare you to make me pay the $200 for a tip. Like, no way. So yeah, these people were absolutely super entitled. They were clearly just trying to squeeze everybody for money, and you can bet there's no way I would ever show up to a wedding if they really think they're gonna make me pay $2,000 just to be there. Am I the jerk for turning down my stepdad's offer to walk me down the aisle, despite the fact that I have every intention of doing that alone? Here's what happened. So to start things out, I'm a 27-year-old female, and I have chosen to walk down the aisle alone on my wedding day. The decision was made for 2 reasons. My dad passed away when I was 7 years old, and he would be my #1 choice if he were alive, but he's not. And secondly, my mom has made it perfectly clear that she would find it disrespectful to my stepdad if she walked me down the aisle, so she would not do it. Given that both my parents are out, and I don't want to ask my paternal grandparents to do too much, as my grandma and I are already sharing a special dance, with all things considered, walking alone is what I feel the most comfortable doing. Now, I could ask my stepdad, and even when I contemplated my decision, I knew he would want to do it, but it would make me sad to have him walk me down the aisle instead of my dad, if I'm being completely honest. I think my stepdad is a good man, and he has tried his very best to be a dad for me, but I didn't want a dad when I lost mine. I wanted my dad. Nobody else was ever going to be able to fill that role in my heart. I asked my mom and stepdad if they would like to do a joint toast or 2 separate ones, and whether they would like to walk down the aisle and dance to specific songs. While discussing this, my stepdad asked who I would be walking with, and I told him that I was going to be walking alone. He offered to do it, and I said it was a lovely offer, but I would walk alone. He pressed me on why, and I said it felt like the best option. He said it would mean the world to him if he could do it. If just once he could feel like he's a real dad, and not just second place to my dad. I told him I understand, but it was just not an option on the table. He said he was already being shamed by having to watch me dance with my grandma, when he thinks that it should be a father-daughter type of dance. But to have everyone watch me walk alone when they know I have a stepdad is going to send a very big message. I know people will ask about details on our relationship and other stuff, but I met my stepdad when I was 9 years old, and he married my mom when I was 10. He offered to adopt me and give me his last name, and I turned him down 5 times in the 8 years I lived with them. He was married before my mom, and he lost his wife and unborn baby in an accident, and he was also made sterile by the same accident. He always longed to be a dad. We got along well, but our relationship was always more to him than it was to me. Where he sees a daughter and wants a daughter, I see a good man and someone who is a great spouse to my mom and is very good to me, but he does not fill the father role he wants to emotionally for me. Physically he did, but emotionally I never felt like he was my dad, and everyone in our lives is aware that I feel as though I have one dad and my stepdad is just my stepdad. My mom and stepdad are not paying or contributing to the wedding in any way. My fiance and I both have savings, and we're putting those into the wedding, though our wedding will be slightly smaller as we want to prioritize other things. My mom and stepdad say that I'm being rude and heartless for turning down the offer. So am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? Honestly, first and foremost, this is your wedding. You can decide whatever you want to do with it. So if you want to say, hey, I'm going to walk down the aisle by myself, then guess what? That's exactly what you're going to do. And the worst part about it is that your stepdad is making this all about him. He's trying to twist this in some kind of way where it makes it seem like it's all about him and that this is some kind of attack on his character or something like that. But he needs to understand that you lost your dad when you were 7 years old and your mom remarried very quickly. Like seriously, I can only imagine how hard that had to have been as a kid. And sure, he really was there for you physically as a dad, father figure type thing, but he isn't your real dad. And honestly, I totally understand where you're coming from. So with all things considered and all the things that you're weighing on at the moment, I don't think you're the jerk here. I think you're just trying to do what's best for you at the moment, and it's really unfortunate that your mom and your stepdad are trying to derail what you want to do. My boyfriend doesn't want to go traveling with any of my family, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. So my boyfriend doesn't want to travel with my family. Long story short, my boyfriend works as a contractor, so unlike me, he doesn't get paid time off. It is September now, and my mother presented an idea for my brother and his girlfriend, as well as my boyfriend and I, to go on a family trip for a week to Mexico in the new year. My mom wanted to offer this as a Christmas present to all of us. She is doing well financially and is the type of person who just wants to give to other people. I asked my boyfriend once I got home if he was interested in this, and I got an instant no. He said his reasoning is that he already takes a week off at Christmas time, which is an unpaid week off by the way, and cannot take another week off in the new year in January. So I told my mom this, and she said that we could do the trip later into the year at a time that worked best for him, as she was flexible. I told him this and he still said no. I know being an independent employee is very hard, and it has no vacation pay. We live together, and I asked if perhaps I could pay our rent and get the groceries on the month that we go on the trip. I make pretty good money, and it wouldn't be a stress on me to do that, just so he could come along. He still said no and got defensive, and said he can't afford to do it. He said he didn't feel comfortable with me paying for his stuff, like the rent and half of the groceries, and he still got super defensive. I asked if there was any way he could save up for the trip, since it could be quite a few months in advance, and he said no, because his summer was a low season with his work, and he is playing catch up right now. Anyways, I got to a point where I had to offer solutions, but I didn't want to push forward more, because I didn't want to come off as pressuring him into doing something that he didn't want to do. But I am really disappointed he isn't willing to make it work. He's done a small weekend getaway with my family once before, so I don't think he has a problem with them, but I can't help but to think he doesn't want to go. It's also a totally free vacation, and I don't see why he wouldn't want to go, as it's such a generous opportunity. Anyways, I told my mother that it was a hard no for absolutely any time that we could go. He simply wouldn't come. And when she heard this, she was really offended and very hurt. She offered to change it to any date, and even offered to pay for our groceries or even help us with rent if it helped us go. I told him that I'm definitely going to come, but that I just can't get him to budge. She accepted it, but I can tell she is thrown off by his instant no for a gift that she wanted to give him. So has anyone gone through this before? A part of me also suspects that because he hasn't done a lot of traveling before, traveling might make him anxious and that there's more to it than just this. But I am disappointed because I've always thought having a partner to travel with, including with my family, would be really nice. I also am worried it's come across as rude to my mother, and I feel bad as if I'm the person in the middle. I don't want to talk to him about it any further because I could tell my persistence was already coming off as being pushy, and I don't want to start tension over this. My mother feels that it's odd and rude that he is unwilling to do it at any point during 2024. I'll also add that my boyfriend is polite to my family and does see them when he needs to. There isn't any kind of tension with him. He is a good partner, and I'm just frustrated because one of our biggest struggles is that I love to travel and we can never afford to. So I was excited because I saw this trip as a chance for us to travel without the burden of the cost of the trip in general. What should I do? Honestly, it kind of sounds like the original poster is being very pushy. Like seriously, it doesn't sound like your boyfriend wants to go on this vacation. Sure, everything's paid for, but that obviously is not part of the equation. He just doesn't want to go, and I can completely understand where he's coming from. He is self-employed. Taking a week off and then feeling indebted to you and your family for paying for his stuff can come off honestly as really demeaning. Like I get it, you want a boyfriend who wants to travel, but your boyfriend doesn't have vacation time. And sure, you're paying for his hotel and all this other stuff, and you're trying to like make up for lost wages and stuff like that, but based on his reaction, he really just doesn't want to do it. Sure, you can be bummed out, but also you need to respect his decision. Like for context, both of these people are in their 30s, and it seems like the original poster just keeps going back to their mom to try and justify what's happening. Like you don't have to do that. You can just say, sorry, he's not gonna go, and then maybe still go on vacation with them. There's also the other side of this, where your boyfriend's gonna feel like the third wheel on this vacation. Like he is literally just gonna be a tag along on whatever your family is doing. Meanwhile, he could have been at home making money. Like I totally get what's going on here. Now don't get me wrong, I totally understand that he can schedule things properly, and there's no reason he couldn't take a week off of some kind, especially with all the accommodations you and your family are willing to make. But in my opinion, I think it's very inappropriate to be so pushy, as well as to explain everything that he says to your in-laws. I mean, at that point, I can totally understand why he's getting defensive. I know if my girlfriend was sharing my money issues with her parents, I would probably be very upset and probably be a little bit offended that she's sharing that with everybody. Like seriously, that's gotta be private. Just as much as you would not want that to happen to you, you can bet that your boyfriend definitely did not want that happening to him. But that's just my opinion. What do you think? Do you think the original poster has a point? Or do you think the boyfriend is well within his rights to say, no, I don't want to go on this vacation? Leave a comment down below. We would love to see what you have to say. My entitled wife confesses to cheating on me at a New Year's party. And after being confronted with this information, she turns it around and tries to accuse me of cheating as well. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Also, the following story came from the Am I the Jerk subreddit. Check the links in the description if you would like to submit your own story. So this all happened during the first year of the new year. My wife and I, who are newly married by the way, are part of a tight-knit friend group as we all met each other in the same university. And once a year, we come together regardless of how busy we are, and we enjoy 2 days together. These 2 days are December 31st and January 1st of each year. This time, the New Year's celebration was held at our house, and everything was going fine until my wife's best friend said something that she shouldn't have. It was an accidental slip of the tongue, but everyone who was in the room heard it. My wife's best friend tried to play it off as her being drunk, but I noticed just how much of a reaction it got out of my wife. And when I pointed it out, everybody started questioning her. And after half an hour of questioning, she finally fessed up about how she was having an affair. When she confessed about it though, I didn't react how everybody thought I would react. Everybody thought I would cry or maybe get angry, but when she confessed and everybody quieted down to see my reaction, all I did was take another snack off of the table in front of me and munch on it while saying carry on or something along those lines. The thing is, I have always had a very nihilistic approach towards life, and this has been going on for as long as I can remember. Eventually, around the time I was 12 years old, I realized that people bully people who stand out, and in order to not be the oddball in my school, I started pretending to care about everything. It was hard at first. I didn't know what to do, where to start, but eventually I just started reading books on psychology, vocal pathology, behavior, verbal and physical physical cues, how to have the perfect tone for the perfect emotion, and much more. Suffice to say, by the time I was 20, I was incredibly good at expressing and understanding others' feelings, to the point that I dare say I am better at articulating myself than most other people. But all these years, deep down, I truly didn't care about any of this, and all of those emotions were just synthetic. Now, of course, I kept it a secret from everybody, and nobody has managed to uncover this my whole life, so I believe I've done a good job at it. Unfortunately, though, that included my friends and my wife. They had no idea that I just don't know how I should feel when stuck in certain situations. So when I found out that my wife was cheating on me, I simply didn't know how to react to that. But this seemed to offend my ex-wife a lot, as she said, "What?" And she said this with great confusion, and then proceeded to get angry at me. She eventually started saying things like, "Okay, I cheated, that's true, but are you sure that you are not also cheating on me?" Now, from a young age, my father has only taught me two things, and he has always repeated that to me and my siblings. And those two things are as follows. For starters, every action has consequences, and secondly, before taking an action, whether you take it or not, is your choice and decision. But after taking that action, it is no longer a choice, and instead it's your responsibility. These were and always will be my motto and ideals. Following my ideals, I have never even entertained the idea of cheating on her, and I've never felt like I could ever do that ever since the moment I kissed her. I have always done my duty and responsibility as a husband, as well as her lover, with all due diligence. But I didn't want to say that because at the moment, inside, this was the first time in a long time I didn't have to pretend to be a responsible adult of society anymore, so I was honestly enjoying my long-lost inner peace. But I knew I also couldn't ignore the chaos that was ensuing outside, so I asked my wife, "Are you done?" And this is actually a mental trick that subconsciously makes you feel defeated in an argument when you answer it by saying, "I am done." Now, although she didn't say that she was done and continued for a while, I asked the same question I had asked earlier, and this time she said that she was done. When she did, I asked what made her think that I ever cheated on her, to which she said my exact behavior right now, to which I said, well, fair enough. Now, at this point, when I looked at the people near me, I noticed their questioning looks that were pointed in my direction, and I understood that this year's party was completely ruined. My wife, who became more assertive when I agreed to her previous allegation, started weeping as she crouched down and started to scream, "Do you still love me? Was I really wrong when I slept with David when you were acting like this?" And this caused her best friend to console her. I also stood up when she crouched down, and then I walked in front of her, crouched down, placed one hand on her shoulder, and said to her, "Save your tears because the divorce papers aren't ready yet." And then I walked away saying, "Happy New Year, everyone. Now, if you will excuse me, I'm leaving." Now, nobody stopped me, as they were really not sure what to do, as well as whose side to take. I mean, after all, my wife and I were both friends of all of them. When walking away, I heard my wife's best friend swearing profanities at me, saying things like, "You heartless jerk," and stuff like that. She wasn't exactly wrong though, as the very next thing I did after walking away from the great room was entering my home office and opening my PC. Now, I am a fairly rich person, and I have a decently huge house. As such, to keep everything in check, I have cameras and microphones set up everywhere, some in plain sight and others that are concealed, and only I can access the footage, as even my wife doesn't know the password of my home office's PC. So I quickly secured the footage, and I gave it a quick edit. I didn't alter anything, I just shortened it down by trimming all the party footage, and then I sent it to her parents. After that, I called her, because I called her in the middle of the new year, and she also had guests over. She couldn't hear me the first time, but when she did hear me at first, she thought it was a joke, so I had to tell her to check out the video I sent. After she watched the video, I heard her scream and wail live on the phone. I also heard people on the other side asking things with concern. Realizing that that was my cue, I swiftly ended the call. Then I called my lawyer and told him everything. My lawyer is pretty good, and our divorce went pretty smoothly. I didn't even have to pay her anything after the divorce, as she had her own work-from-home kind of job. And just like that, a few months passed, and I realized that all my friends from the previously mentioned friend group were giving me the cold shoulder. I usually would have talked to them and tried to clarify my actions, but when my wife and friends left me, I found myself with a lot of free time. So much free time, in fact, that I started to question if I ever wanted to get married ever again. Something about not having all the time to myself felt really good, though I still take responsibility for my parents. They don't live with me, so living in my house alone felt really comfortable. Now, a couple of weeks ago, my friends from the friends group started contacting me again, but I just ignored them and kept giving them the cold shoulder. Now, things had changed when they invited me for a party again, and naturally, I didn't want to go, but one of my friends personally came to pick me up, so I mean, how could I refuse that, right? Well, we went to the party, and all of my friends were there, along with some of my acquaintances. I was the last guest to arrive, until about half an hour later when my ex-wife showed up. During the whole procedure of divorce, I never contacted her, and she tried to contact me but couldn't. She tried to enter my house, but that's actually impossible without my permission, because I have gates with security on them. So this was the first time we have even seen each other in almost 8 months. She looked visibly depressed. She was wearing heavy makeup to hide her dark circles. Her posture was bad. Overall, she didn't have the radiance and glow that she used to have. But this time, everybody who was present that day seemed to be giving her the cold shoulder. And at one point, she tried to approach me, but I just walked away when she did. She approached me once again, and this time, I just felt like I should hear her out. Not because I had some lingering feelings for her, but because it just felt rude to leave someone twice at a party. I mean, I surely would not like that kind of humiliation if that was me. She talked to me about how she just didn't understand my worth when I was close to her, and now that I was away from her, she truly misses me, and how she doesn't believe that we were meant to just separate like this. At some point, her eyes became teary and misty as she did her best to pursue me. Eventually, her best friend joined in as well. Though she didn't participate in our conversation, she just deterred any curious passerby looking for gossip. My conversation with my ex-wife ended with my last message, which was the following: "It may be true that you still love me. It may also be true that we are truly meant for each other, and I also think that you're telling me the truth when you say that David was just a mistake that you made. But at the end of the day, you did it. You were not under the influence, you weren't even high. You're not someone who can't think for herself. You did it willingly and you enjoyed it. And now you get to suffer for it." After I was done, she left the party in tears, and some of our mutual friends followed her. Surprisingly, her best friend stayed and talked to me. She said how they, referring to the friends who were present that day, actually thought that even I was cheating on her. They even went as far as to hire multiple private investigators to run background and daily checks on me. And even after months of snooping around, they literally couldn't find anything. And then she said with genuine sadness that I deserved better, all before she left the party, probably to console her best friend. After they left, the atmosphere around me got slightly weird, but I put my social skills to good use and greatly decreased the tension. After the party ended, I also returned home. I thought I would feel something, anything, when I saw my wife and friends for the first time in months, but there was literally nothing. Love, hate, grief, anger, nothing was there. Like always, it felt futile. I know some of you are going to ask this, so I want to say this in advance. I don't feel an inkling of attachment towards my family either. My parents who have raised me, my siblings with whom I molded our future together, my friends with whom I have shared my darkest secrets, and finally my wife and lover who has seen every inch of my body. I feel nothing towards any of them. Don't get me wrong, I have done my job as a son, sibling, friend, and lover very well. I have always taken my responsibilities with the utmost seriousness, and I have never neglected them just because of how I was feeling. I am proud to say that everybody who has ever met me has said that I'm a very good son, sibling, friend, and husband. In fact, one of the things my ex-wife's friend said before leaving the party that day was that I was a good husband and I deserved better. If you can get your enemy's respect, that means something, right? But none of that mattered, as I never really felt anything from anyone at all. And one night when I was thinking about this, a thought surfaced in my mind. Maybe it was my fault that my wife chose another man over me. You see, my wife's love language is acts of service, so I have always made sure to do little things for her. And on top of that, I would bring her a surprise gift once a month. We will go out to see a movie once in a while. She likes to watch Fluffy, also known as Gabriel Iglesias, so whenever she got depressed, I would book a couple of tickets for his show, if the show was close to us. And then if not, we would just go on a long drive if it's not too far away. I would even book a jet for her. I cooked for her. I always tried new things in our intimate life to make sure she never got bored. And once a week, we will go to a restaurant for lunch, because even she deserves a break from cooking lunches every day nonstop. I would pretend to fight and pretend to be seriously angry, just so she would get the thrill of fighting me once in a while. And it was all playful. It was nothing malicious. But even after all of that, somewhere in my heart, I truly think it was my fault, because I am sick in the head, because I did something wrong that she left me, and that is eating me away from the inside. So I honestly want your opinion. The very people who now know a secret that nobody who knows me in real life has been able to find out yet. Tell me, am I the person who who is at fault? Am I the jerk here? What should I do? I don't think you're the jerk here, all things considered. It's really a good thing that you recognize that having emotions and feeling things is not something that comes intuitively. I mean, it seems like you're very self-aware of that fact, and you have worked very hard to adjust to society. And that's really good in my opinion. You're fulfilling your responsibilities and helping those around you and loving those around you, even if you yourself don't feel it on the inside. And honestly, I'm just gonna say it, I don't think that makes you crazy at all. You're putting in the effort, you're trying to find some functionality in society, and that, in my opinion, goes a long way. But let's look at the facts here real quick. You did not cheat on your wife. She cheated on you. In my opinion, this automatically makes her the jerk. And I really think you got it right the first time. She knew what she was doing. She was well aware of her actions and all the things going on in her life. She knew that going to David would be an awful decision, and yet with all things considered, she still did it. She chose to do that to you, not the other way around. Like seriously, you can't make someone else cheat on you. She chose to do that. If she was unhappy in her marriage and she didn't like you or something like that, then that honestly should have been brought up. Like the solution to that is talking and having an honest conversation, not going to David and seeing what he has to say. Like that's such a sudden leap and it's so disloyal, despite the fact that you've done everything you can to make her comfortable. And from the sounds of it, you really did do a good job. And that, in my opinion, is very responsible. You did the right thing pretty much throughout the relationship. So no, in my opinion, I don't think you're the jerk. I think you handled this really well. I know if I was in your shoes, I definitely would be very upset if my significant other cheated on me. I would definitely be the guy who gets angry or cries or gets upset or something like that. But regardless, I don't think you're the jerk in this situation, and I think your wife is 100% at fault. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My entitled general manager says that if I don't like my job, I can either find somebody to replace me or I can quit. So I decide to maliciously comply, and I decide that now's a time to get back at my general manager and find a new job without any kind of notice. Here's what happened. As a young adult, I decided to move several hundreds of miles away on a whim without a new job lined up. Fortunately, the relatives I was living with knew a ton of people in the small town and were able to get me a job within a week at the local grocery store. It was to be a courtesy clerk bagging groceries and stocking shelves. Immediately, I made friends with coworkers, and some of the customers weren't too bad either. However, management was a different deal, such as the HR manager, who would waste a customer's time telling them recipes for the items they have, and as a result, just holding up the line. She would also call me from the back of the store to bag 2 items and help a man barely older than me to his car despite him protesting. There was also John, the general manager. John is not his real name. John would be nice in groups, but if he got you alone, his true colors would show. He once berated me for having a 5 o'clock shadow, even though I shaved right before work. Like my hair is dark and it grows quickly. Sorry, dude, I can't help nature. After a few months, the night janitor quit, so John decided it would now be my job to polish the floors every morning. My previous job was at a movie theater, so working from 5 p.m. to 2 a.m. was pretty normal, whereas mornings were definitely not my jam. This would require me to be at work by 4 in the morning, but I was told this would be for 1 to 2 months tops. I was even thrown a 5-cent raise for my troubles. I mean, how could I decline? After about a month, I asked John how the search for a replacement is going. He says probably 2 weeks and everything will be settled. Well, after month 2, I ask again. John says the first person fell through and suggests that maybe I know someone who might be looking for a job, but I assure him that is not the case. After the 3rd month, I was completely over it. Again, I approached John and explained that I cannot keep doing this much longer. He replies, "Not my problem, find someone else or a new job." This really set me off, but I wasn't in a position to walk out right then, so I figured I'd start applying anywhere I could. A couple of days later, probably even the same day, my relative drags me with them to go looking for new cars. While discussing prices and waiting for the sales manager to respond, my relative and the salesperson were just BSing with one another, and I mentioned what John had told me about the job. The salesperson raised an eyebrow and walked away. Moments later, the sales manager approached me and said they were looking for a dealer and asked if I was interested. And this would be a regular schedule. I wouldn't have to work evenings, and it would be higher than even my previous theater job as a manager. While my relative was signing paperwork, I was filling out a new hire packet. I was to begin work on Tuesday of the next week. When I got home, I packed a bag and began driving to my hometown to visit friends. I knew I wouldn't have to work for about a week because at midnight I called the grocery store and told them that I would not be returning to work. I said to them, if you have any questions, please ask John. A year or so after my departure, John was mysteriously no longer working at the store. Nobody knew why, as he had another 5 years before retirement. But one day I had to go to the bank to deposit a check, and John was the teller. And let me tell you, it was so fun to watch him deposit my paycheck from my new employer. Wow, that really came full circle, didn't it? John seriously was not only a complete moron, but he was also awful at his job. Like seriously, all he had to do was find somebody to wipe the floors and clean up the place. That shouldn't be that hard of a job, and it should be an easy search for the most part. Like it seemed like he didn't want to search for anybody because the original poster was already doing a good job, or at least doing the job in the first place. And that is just so straight up lazy. So good for you for giving it right back to him, as well as getting to watch him deposit your check. Because if John was just a little bit kinder and treated you with just a bit more respect, he would probably still have his job. My boss screamed at me after I called out of work at the restaurant I work at, claiming that I just didn't want to be there and that I should have done better. And now I'm kind of at a crossroads and I seriously don't know what to do. So I just want to start off by saying that I really love my job. I like my coworkers, it's good money, and I honestly have fun when I'm there. And I work in addition to going to college. I've been working at my restaurant for almost 2 years since before it opened. I've never called out, and yesterday I was working and I didn't feel the best. So I asked my manager on duty if I could cut for today, and he said to ask the closer to the shift. I woke up this morning so sick. I just decided to call out because there was no way I was going in like this regardless of what they say. So I text the main manager and the owner. He gives me a hostile response saying that I just wanted to call out because I didn't want to be there and that I should be texting him and should be using the work app instead, even though I always text him like this. That really infuriated me because I've never called out and he never gets mad at other people for calling out. Like he literally cuts people just because they want to do fun things and not work. When I told one of the other managers I wasn't coming in, she asked if I was okay and told me to feel better. I've always either gotten my shift covered or just worked it in the past when I had something come up, and it really hurt me the way that he spoke to me. I told one of my former coworkers, who I was friends with before working there, and she agreed that he was being hostile for literally no reason. So am I at fault here? Did I do something wrong that maybe I don't know about? What should I do? Okay, your boss is a complete jerk. There's no reason for him to act that way. He literally got hostile for no reason at all. Like, let's look at this for a second. Here you are working at a restaurant, and you've been a loyal member of the staff ever since day one. I mean, you've been working there for almost 2 years. It's not like you haven't paid your dues. You're not like brand new or anything like that. You've been around and you have some experience. And you would think that, hey, maybe some of this experience comes with, I don't know, a little bit of respect. For your manager to be like, wow, you just don't want to be here. That, in my opinion, is proof that they absolutely should not be the manager. I mean, it does sound like they're the owner of the restaurant, but the point still stands. Why on earth would you want your employee coming to work sick? Like, seriously, can anyone make sense of that? If I was the manager of a restaurant and I had an employee be like, hey, I don't feel good and I feel sick, I would be like, oh yeah, don't come in. Please don't come in. We do not want you here if you're sick. Because literally that is such a liability. You could get everybody in the kitchen sick. You could get customers sick. You could even infect the food and that could be sent out to who knows where. Like, why on earth would anyone want you there? If you're sick, just stay home. And it's not like this is a chronic thing. You've never even called out before. This is the first time. So I mean, clearly it's gotta be bad for you to be like, hey, I don't feel good. I think I should go home. So no, all in all, you are not the jerk. The owner in this story is completely out of line, and they have no business treating you that way in the slightest. My entitled neighbor demands that I watch her kids, claiming that I just don't understand how hard it is, despite the fact that I have kids of my own, and I have enough on my plate as it is. And when I told her that no, I can't watch your kids all the time, she got offended and said I was being judgmental. And I've never been more blown away by somebody's entitlement in my life. Here's what happened. So shortly after we bought our first home, I went next door to meet the wife who lived across the street. I had already met her kids, as she sent them to our house to play while we were unpacking. And I really should have known right then and there that this wasn't going to be good. But honestly, I was excited to see that she had kids close to my children's age. I had my first child a month after I turned 18. For years, it was a struggle for me to find mom friends. The woman I wanted to be friends with looked at me like I was a child, and the moms I found my age were more interested in dumping their kids and partying. I thought I might have finally found my perfect opportunity for a great mom mom friend, plus she lived right across the street. So I walked over and I introduced myself to her. We got to talking and she told me it was her and her husband's anniversary. I asked her if they had plans and she said, "Well, actually, I wanted to ask you if you'd do me a solid and watch the kids while I go on a date." Now, when she said this, I was a bit taken back. She didn't even know me. I mean, I'm weird about leaving my kids with just about anyone, but then I figured this poor lady must be desperate. And since it was her anniversary after all, I agreed to go ahead and do it. My children were 10 months and 6 years old at the time, and she had a 1-year-old, a 3-year-old, and a 5-year-old. Watching her kids on top of mine was definitely a chore, but I get through it and I was happy to give her their date night. I ended up getting a little gas station job that worked outside my husband's shift. My husband worked second shift, would get home around 1, stay up until 6 in the morning because he couldn't quite fall asleep, and then sleep until half an hour before he had to leave again. In order to make it work, I would open the gas station early hours, work 4 to 6 hours a day on the weekdays and every other weekend, and I'd keep my kids up until 9 so they would sleep in until I got home. I was working part-time 32 hours a week, but would also take care of everything else until it was the weekend, and I could then get help from my husband. To say I was exhausted is an understatement. Here's where the really entitled part starts to come in though. My neighbors started to watch to see me arrive home and then send her children, her very small children, over to my house to ask if they could play at my house. And at those ages, I had to constantly supervise them. Her kids also lacked total boundaries and manners. I could excuse it by saying that they were little, but even the one closest to my daughter's age was really bad. They would eat up all my kids' snacks, tornado through my home, and then when I would say it was time to clean up, they would literally just walk out the door. And because of this, I started telling them no whenever they came over. And that's where things really started to get weird. After consistently telling them no when Saturday night rolled around, my neighbor and her husband came over to supposedly say hi to my husband and myself. We were chatting maybe a minute when my neighbor said to me, "You really need to watch my kids. You have no idea how hard it is." I thought to myself, excuse me? I told her straight up that yes, I do know how hard it is. I told her I first became a mother just 5 months after I graduated high school, and she had her first at the age I had my last. I told her that I had been working 32 hours a week, waking up at 3 in the morning. She then interrupted me there by saying that me going back to work is a break. She was a stay-at-home mom, but if she really did feel that way, she could also go get a job opposite her husband's 9 to 5 work schedule. And she also had his help all week after work. I told her that in the situation I was personally in, being a stay-at-home mom would be easier. I was still doing all the work that I did when I stayed home, but then would have to go off to work. She then twisted it around like I was saying that being a stay-at-home mom was easy, which it's not. I had already had a few year-long periods of staying at home, and it wasn't what I said. She then said to me, "You're being judgmental," and then she stomped off, saying that I just simply didn't understand her. Now, this is just one of many stories involving this lady. She made my life a living nightmare for the 5 years that we lived next to each other, and this is probably the most PG-rated story of them all, but it honestly just fits perfectly. But here's the real kicker. If she had even shown any interest of wanting to be my friend versus someone that she just wanted to use, I probably would have helped her to my own detriment. She was able to worm herself back into using me for free childcare, but those are stories for another time. Wow, that lady seriously was very entitled. Like, she literally just said, "Okay, I'm gonna send my kids to your place. You just really need to watch them. I just don't know what to do with them." Like, lady, are you kidding me? No one should have to be a free babysitter for anybody. Like, that's just not fair at all. She was even sending her small children over to your house, probably just to try and guilt trip you into saying yes. Like, that is seriously so messed up, and she really should not have done that. So honestly, good for you for putting your foot down and not taking that for a second, because that lady was being incredibly entitled. And honestly, no one should ever have to deal with that in the slightest. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to AmITheJerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for making my husband leave a wedding reception with me early and thus making him upset the next day? Here's what happened. My husband and I have been married for 8 years and have 2 kids together, and I'm also currently 7 months pregnant with our 3rd child. This has been by far my worst pregnancy. Overall health-wise, me and the baby are fine, there's no major issues, but the general fatigue and discomfort of being pregnant while also having 2 other kids to take care of is honestly wearing on me. I've also had more nausea and terrible heartburn as a result of me being tired literally all the time time, my husband has had to take on a lot of additional household and childcare duties, and he's been great about it, and things are still running smoothly, even though I can only do about 30% of the household and kid stuff that I would usually do. This past weekend, we attended a wedding for one of my friends from college. My husband knows a lot of people in this friend group, and he was really looking forward to some adult social interaction. The wedding was a 3-hour drive from our place, so he got his parents to babysit and booked a hotel so that we wouldn't have to drive home and we could enjoy the reception. I felt fine all day up until about halfway through the reception. I mean, it was like hitting a wall energy-wise, and I started getting terrible heartburn. My husband was off mingling with people, while I pretty much just sat at a table for over an hour, talking with whoever came by to say hi. My husband eventually came over to check on me, and I told him that I wasn't feeling well and I wanted to leave. He then asked if I would be comfortable taking the shuttle back to the hotel by myself so that he could stick around and keep socializing. But I told him that I want him to come back to the room with me in case I start feeling worse so that he can take care of me. He didn't protest or argue with me, but he did give a big sigh as if to say, okay, fine. When we got back to the room, I was so exhausted that I fell asleep immediately. Fast forward to the next day, and he was short with me all morning as we were getting ready to leave. A lot of one-word answers kind of stuff. On the way home, I asked him what his deal was, and he said he's frustrated that I made him go back to the room with me only for me to then just fall asleep. He said if he knew I was going to just fall asleep, he would have stayed at the reception for much longer. He said that this was the first social interaction he has had in months, and with a new baby coming, it will probably be his last social interaction like that for several months. I told him that I didn't make him come back with me. I just told him I wanted him there in case I felt worse. I also told him that my health should be his priority over any other social event. He said that wasn't really giving him a choice because if he stayed, even if I fell asleep right away like I did, I would still hold it against him that he chose wrong. He said that he was just enjoying behaving like an adult instead of a dad for one night, and he's allowed to be frustrated that this was cut short. Now, it might just be my hormones, but his attitude is making me feel guilty about all of this. So am I the jerk for making my husband leave a wedding reception with me? Honestly, I need to side with the husband at this point. I really think that it's not fair for you to pretend like you didn't make him leave, when in reality, you straight up told him, yes, I want you to come home with me in case I don't feel good. And he listened because that's what you wanted him to do, even though he didn't want to do that. And maybe I'm gonna sound mean for what I'm about to say, but seriously, it's just heartburn. I'm sure there's some kind of medicine you can take to help that heartburn that will not affect your pregnancy and will still allow your husband to have some kind of social interaction. The way you're treating him is honestly very much manipulative, and it makes it seem like, oh, this is your problem. And clearly your husband has run into this before, because whenever he doesn't make the right choice, whatever that choice should be, you hold it over his head and make sure he doesn't forget it. Like, honestly, there's no reason you couldn't have taken the shuttle back to the hotel and just relaxed and laid down for the night. It really would not have been that hard. But instead, you decided to drag your husband back to the room with you. Also, you could just fall asleep. Like, literally, I would be upset as well. And also, how on earth is he supposed to take care of you when you have heartburn? There is literally nothing that he can do to fix that situation. So yeah, in my opinion, I absolutely think you're a jerk because there's no reason why your husband couldn't have stuck around and enjoyed some socializing. I found out that my girlfriend has been lying about her financial situation, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. So my girlfriend and I have been together going on 2 years now, and I've been planning on proposing to her soon. We talk finances all the time and have been planning on saving for a home in the near future, and according to her, she has about $40,000 in savings, and I have a little over $30,000. Everything has been working out great for us, and I told her I need to see her bank account as well as her credit balance before I would be comfortable proposing. She seemed pretty startled when I asked about it, which makes sense because I did ask out of nowhere, but she knows how serious I am on finances. I open her debit account and I see that she has roughly $1,000 in checking and about $4,000 in savings. But the real kicker is that she has $8,000 cash advance from her credit card with that bank. I then call her other credit card and she is sitting on a balance of about $6,000 there as well. This revelation shocked me, considering that she doesn't have any large expenses. I mean, I fully pay for rent and her car is paid off, so I am curious how this even happened. I proceed to confront her on what is going on, and she acts confused, but tells me that all the money she took out in cash, and she has it, but she just doesn't trust the bank. Okay, that's fair. If that is your belief, then no problem. I will just go in and be able to see that you withdrew $40,000 over the last 2 years? Well, it turns out that these cash withdrawals are nowhere near $40,000, and instead it's closer to about $8,000. As you can tell by now, all of this really stunned me, and I had to take a step back and try to evaluate this from an unbiased view. I thought maybe the savings is in an investment account. Maybe the bank messed up in showing the transaction. Maybe I just missed it on my end. So now at this point, I'm very skeptical, and I don't know how to feel about this situation. I was never told about the credit card debt, and I wouldn't have cared if she just told me. But I do care about this, because now our whole future has been derailed, and my trust is at an all-time low. It also doesn't help that when I originally asked her to show me the cash withdrawals, she edited a bank statement to show the withdrawals, which I immediately noticed were fake, and when I called her out on it, she wouldn't admit that she faked it for almost a week. I didn't check what she was spending her money on. I mean, her money is her business, and she is free to spend it on whatever she wants. But I don't want to be told that you're saving a certain amount of dollars because I'm going to make plans for the future based on what I'm being told. In a last-ditch effort, I went in and added up all she spent in the last 2 years, and I subtracted it from her post-tax income over the 2 years, and there is no way it would be possible for her to make $40,000 in savings. So honestly, if you were in my shoes, what would you do? I really do not know how to deal with this, or if this is something that can even be fixed. I am very much on the verge of ending it all, but what if she's being honest? What if I throw it all away and she really didn't do anything wrong? What should I do? It really doesn't sound like she's telling the truth. Like, straight up, it really seems like she's lying to you, and that is really not fair for you in the slightest. Like, think about it. You're trying to get this stuff together. You're trying to get things going and have some kind of future with her, but here she is lying about how much money is saved up. Like, why would she do that? That seems so counterintuitive with your future spouse. I mean, that's a lot of lying about her money. Either she was too embarrassed to tell you the truth, or if she lied to try and deceive you, whatever the truth is in that regard, I personally think that this is a massive red flag and a huge deal when it comes to your future. She literally tried to change a bank statement to show a different record of her bank account. She literally kept lying to you for over a week until she finally said, yes, I changed it, or whatever she said. Like, that is honestly crazy to me, and there's no reason to act like that. So hopefully you could see how sketchy this really is, because the way she lied to you is really not good. And if I was in your shoes, I absolutely would not ignore that. My entitled neighbor won't stop smoking the herb under our flat, and it's starting to make me feel sick, and I seriously don't know what to do. I do not know what to do about this situation, and I could really use some insight. My neighbor, we'll call him John, that's not his real name, has been smoking the herb, if you know what I mean, for as long as we have lived in the flat above his. He lives with his girlfriend, who is semi-friends with my sister, who I live with. My sister is friends with her cousin, and then they exchanged numbers when we moved in. I also send her down cookies in a basket on a rope from our balcony whenever I bake a batch, so we are on friendly terms for the most part. My sister also has a newborn baby. Now, I normally don't care what you do in your spare time. If it doesn't affect me and doesn't hurt anyone else, it's none of my business. But the trouble is that this does affect me. I'm autistic, and I have some pretty bad sensory issues. Loud noises and strong smells can really stress me out. So you can imagine what it must feel like to come home after a long, horrible 8-hour workday, hoping to have a nice, relaxing night, only to then find out that your flat smells like the herb. And it's a very strong smell that makes me feel like I'm choking. We have spoken to John's girlfriend, and she has said he's gonna quit for the baby. And during the pregnancy, he did seem to limit the smoking to once a week rather than twice a day, which still wasn't great, but it was a start. But the baby has been home for 3 days now, and in those 3 days, John has been smoking on his balcony multiple times a day. And as we are currently in the middle of a heat wave, we can't even close the windows anymore to try and block the smell. I'm really at the end of my tether now, and I've had so many meltdowns over this with so much ugly crying, it's not even funny. And I have debated on whether to report him to the landlord so many times. For the record, we both rent, and smoking or doing any kind of substance like that is absolutely not allowed in the building. The only reason I haven't is because of that baby, and also because of his girlfriend. They don't deserve to suffer just because I can't handle smells. I just feel like he's being super inconsiderate. It's too hot these days not to keep a window open, but I've been forced to close it anyways, and there have been so many moments over the past few months when I've just wanted to relax on my balcony that we pay extra for in rent and council tax, only to then be chased off by the smell. It's not fair. I should be able to relax and enjoy myself and feel safe in my own home, but I can't even do that. I'm at my wit's end, and I'm crying every day now over the nauseating feeling I get when I walk through the door. It's not fair and I don't know what to do. Can anyone give me advice? What should I do? Yeah, John is being super inconsiderate. Honestly, if I was in your shoes, I would have already reported them to the landlord. I get that they're friends and I get there's some kind of history or whatever, but the fact of the matter is you can't do that in the apartment complex you live in. Sorry, buddy, but the smell is bothering me and I'm sick of it. It's not like this guy doesn't know that he can't be doing this, and it's also not as if people haven't told him, hey, could you cut it out, please? So yeah, that's what I would be doing. I would be going to the landlord and say, hey, I want to report this anonymously, but my neighbor is absolutely smoking the herb, and that's not fair for me when I'm trying to deal with this stupid heat wave. And frankly, I just wouldn't care if he found out that I did it or not. Like, we all signed an agreement saying we wouldn't do that in this apartment building. And I get it, he's on the balcony, but I'm pretty sure those apartment contracts usually have it spelled out that yes, just because you're on the balcony, it still means that you're on the property of the building itself. So yeah, that's what I would do if I was in that situation. I wouldn't want to put up with that smell either, and I'm surprised you've put up with it for as long as you have as well. Because I'm pretty sure if you tell the right people, this can be sorted out fairly quickly. Am I the jerk for not helping my sister leave my wedding on time? Here's what happened. So my wedding was on a small island with the main boat taking everybody back at 1 in the morning, and this was a 45-minute journey. We paid for 2 additional boats, one at 8 p.m. and another at 10:30 p.m. for anyone who couldn't party until early morning. My sister sent us a message prior to the wedding and told us that she was trying to sort out her own private boat at 8 p.m. as she had to get my young nieces to bed. We told her we could organize one for her as we already had to get the photographer back at 8 p.m. and she thankfully agreed. Now, as a side note, she previously asked us to move our wedding date forward 1 week after we sent the save the dates out because my niece was starting school after the wedding weekend. We had asked for her input before we booked, specifically mentioning my nieces and school term times, and she told us to go ahead and book what we wanted, and so we did, and we chose to not move the dates as we booked and let all the guests know already. I feel this has been an issue of contention ever since. Now back to the wedding night. I started the dance floor music early so my niece could dance with us before they left, and my sister and brother-in-law really got into dancing with them as well. My wedding planner asked me who would be there on the 8 o'clock boat. I looked at my sister and I said, oh, my family, but I'm not sure which of them at the moment. This was an error on my part, as I should have specified that I didn't know if my parents should also leave with my sister. My wedding planner then went on the DJ microphone and gave a notice that the first boat would be leaving in 10 minutes. My sister's family is still dancing, but I don't ask them to stop and leave to get the boat. Eventually, we all say goodbye. She then suddenly makes a beeline for me across the dance floor with a really angry look in her eyes. She then says to me, the boat left. I'm like, what? She then says to me, you told your wedding planner you didn't think we were going. I then said to her, oh no, that's not what I said. And she says to me, I'm now stuck here. And I said to her, yes, because I had no idea what to suggest on the spot, and she just storms away from me. I speak to my wedding planner, who is apologizing profusely and saying she is calling around different boat companies to see if anyone can help us out. My nieces see me again and excitedly runs up to me to give me a hug, but my sister shouts, girls, come on, and they move away from me and my planner. And when she did that, it absolutely broke my heart. My husband asked his family for cash as a new boat was available and sorted them out. Meanwhile, I cried in a toilet cubicle. She messaged us both the next day saying that we hope we had a nice night, and I wish my niece a good first day at school in response. Ever since then, we haven't really spoken to each other. I can't tell if she's mad at me or if she is mad that I'm possibly mad at her. Either way, I can't lose the anxiety, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Okay, first off, your sister should have been more attentive to the time. If she knew that she had to leave at a specific time, she should have been planning with you to make sure that was gonna happen. The fact that she missed the boat is not your fault. That is literally all her fault. Also, her reaction to that was completely out of line. She seriously should have done better, and she should have been a little bit more compassionate about your wedding situation. It's not like you did it on purpose. Why is she trying to spoil the mood, all because she was too irresponsible to gather her kids and get out of there? That is literally not your fault. Like, did she think the boat was going to be specifically held for her? Like, come on, you've got to be ridiculous. There was literally an announcement. Did you really not hear what was happening? So no, you're not the jerk in this situation. Your sister is absolutely a jerk, and there's no reason for her to talk to you like that in the slightest. My entitled neighbors demand full access to my house, as well as a portion of my back garden, as they try to renovate their rundown house. And I've I've never been more amazed by somebody's entitlement in my life. Here's what happened. So I first met James and Rose when I heard my doorbell ring. James and Rose are not their real names. I head downstairs and I find them already in my living room. Yep, my girlfriend opened the door and they just waltz right in like they own the place. We awkwardly said hello while also guiding them back out the front door. I thought that was it, but boy was I wrong. James and Rose bought an ex-council house that had been badly damaged by the last tenants. I'm talking busted walls, shattered windows, you name it. The house was listed accurately, so none of this was a surprise to them. Strangely, I never had problems with the people who used to rent, and was amazed when they left and I saw the damage that they had done. James and Rose just decided that I would be helping them out and had the audacity to come over with a contract that they had drafted, stating that their builders can use my garden and my bathroom, and that they can use my kitchen whenever they needed until theirs was installed. Now, them handing me this contract was literally the second time I ever interacted with them. I basically went around to tell them that this was ludicrous and that they could shove it. They weren't pleased and slammed the door in my face. Not too long after that, I find them standing in my back garden. My girlfriend had been hanging up laundry, and they apparently heard her in the backyard and decided to let themselves through my front yard, around the side of my house, and right up to her. My girlfriend was practically frozen, holding up a pair of her pants while they just stood there, looking around and just smiling. They then suggested, given how unhelpful I'd been with their renovations, that I host a barbecue for them and their friends. Now, what friends, you might ask? Beats me, but I shut that down real quick, and I told them never to come through my backyard ever again. But they weren't done and they couldn't leave yet. They had the gall to propose straight after I told them to get out that I give up roughly 1/5 of my garden so our gardens could be equally sized. I told them in no uncertain terms that they can forget it. It is not my problem if they bought a house with a smaller garden. At this point, I was seeing red, and I think they knew that they had pushed it too far, as they eventually scampered away. Now, I guess James and Rose decided that since I wouldn't willingly give them part of my garden, they would try taking it instead. From my back room, I saw some guy standing at the end of my garden. I went out to ask who he was and how in the world he got there. And as you could probably guess, it was because of James and Rose. Turns out James and Rose had torn down our adjoining fence, and this guy was planning where the new one would go, clearly not having been told that it's my garden and that I was absolutely not on board with this plan. And oh, it gets better. They also peeped through my windows and had questions about my belongings. I do kickboxing and I have a life-size training dummy, and they would then ask me about that and be like, "Did you know that looks scary and it should probably be moved away from the window?" They apparently didn't want to see it while they were enjoying their newly enlarged garden. I calmly told the man that I was keeping all of my garden, and none of them had my permission to be there. I also informed them that if I catch them in my garden again, they will be volunteering to take the place of my human-sized dummy. The last I heard, they tried to bully our 70-year-old neighbor into giving up part of his garden. He's got early onset dementia, and his 4 or 5 sons visit him regularly, but they don't currently live with him. I stay in contact with them as I go around to help my neighbors now and then, or just to chat and keep him company. He's a really cool guy, and hearing him upset about some contract and him losing where his shed was located basically had me fighting not to see red. Eventually though, one text to his sons and that nonsense was shut down really quickly. I mean, honestly, I never thought I'd meet people this entitled, but here we are. Needless to say, James and Rose have kept their distance since my very explicit warnings, which extend to bothering our dear old neighbor too. My girlfriend is back to hanging up washing outside, but she won't open the front door without checking the Ring camera first, just in case those weirdos are somehow lurking around the corner. Wow, this honestly upsets me. The fact that these people would not only just straight up walk into your house the second you open the door, but also would invade your personal privacy is beyond me. For me personally, I'm a private individual. I like to keep things to myself, and I like to keep my belongings safe and secure. So when someone's messing with my belongings, namely my home or my garden if I was in the original poster's shoes, I would be livid. I would not be taking this sitting down, and I personally would have been involved with the police to make sure these weirdos don't try that again. Like seriously, they came up to you after having a terrible first impression of walking into your house and tried to get you to sign a contract, basically saying, oh, the construction guys, yeah, they can use your bathroom and your kitchen whenever they want. Also, we're taking some of your garden, thanks. Like, no, I don't think so. You're not doing any of that. You're gonna stay off of my property while also leaving the 70-year-old neighbor alone. So honestly, good for you for putting your foot down and not taking that for a second, because these neighbors were being absolutely absolutely entitled jerks, and I'm pretty sure if you gave them an inch in your life, they absolutely would take a mile. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to AmITheJerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My girlfriend thinks it's weird for her to have to pay me in rent, and at this point, I really don't know what to do. So to start things out, I just wanted some opinions from internet strangers on this one. My girlfriend and I have been together for about 5 years. For the first year and a half of our relationship, she lived at home with her parents, but spent most nights at the place I was renting at the time. In March of 2020, I bought a house and she moved in with me. Until recently, I hadn't been asking her to contribute money to the household expenses because when she moved in, she was working part-time and simultaneously working on a master's degree, as well as trying to get a professional certificate. I have been paying for all of the utilities, as well as for her car insurance and most of our groceries. A few days ago, I asked her to start paying for her share of the utilities, as well as $500 monthly towards the house. She didn't have any issue with paying toward the utilities, but she said that it was weird of me to ask her to pay rent since it was my house, and I would essentially be profiting off of her payment. Eventually, she agreed to start paying me, but it really seemed like it was under protest. I think $500 is very reasonable, and I don't see how this is a weird request. It doesn't even cover half of the interest I pay each month on the mortgage. Also, for some additional information, I make about $140,000 each year, and she recently started making about $40,000. She is working on paying off student loans, but is going to have low monthly payments thanks to income-based repayment. My mortgage payment is about $2,400 a month, and the combined utilities are about $500 a month. The home we live in is a modest starter home, and we're in a high cost of living area, so a decent apartment in the area would easily cost as much as my mortgage. Now here's the thing, I don't need the money, but it is important to me that I feel like we are both contributing towards the household expenses where we can. We do plan on getting married and we don't want to have any kids. We split the chores somewhat evenly. She definitely does more than I do since she has had more time to spend at home, but I would call it about a 60-40 split. So with all things considered, is it really that weird to ask my girlfriend to pay me $500 each month in rent? What should I do? I mean, I don't think it's weird that you're asking her to pay for stuff. Maybe if you really want her to like pay for the utilities, just maybe ask her to pay for like specific ones at the end of the month or whatever you want to do. I can understand where she's coming from, where she's like, wait, why would I pay you rent? We are together after all, right? So I mean, if you really want to do something where it's like, hey, pay me $500 a month so I can pay for stuff, that's fine, but I think maybe getting like something in writing would be better off, and that would be much more secure than some kind of like word of mouth, like open contract between the two of you, some kind of like verbal agreement. That's just weird. But I think the crux of the issue is maybe she's not paying enough towards her share, and maybe you can just like reword this and be like, hey, this is gonna go towards your utilities, or at least your expenses, or something like that. So hopefully you can work this out and somehow reframe this so it doesn't seem like you're just trying to profit off of her. Am I the jerk for telling my sister-in-law exactly what it's like to have a big family? Here's what happened. My husband and I have 6 kids. 3 of them are biologically ours, with the other 3 being adopted siblings. Together, we make a high 6-figure income, and we are totally debt-free, as well as owning our house outright, and this will be relevant later. My husband and his brother were raised by very neglectful parents, and used to talk all the time about having a big family when they grow up. They were upfront with me and my sister-in-law about wanting a lot of kids from our early days of dating. My sister-in-law and brother-in-law are starting to try for their first kid, and my sister-in-law has been leaning on me for emotional support, which I am very glad to provide. Last Sunday, she asked me to be brutally honest about what it's like to have 6 kids. I told her that my experience will not be very helpful to her, seeing that our situations are very different, and she then asked me to explain. So I told her that I am a stay-at-home mom with passive income in the high 6-figure range. My husband makes over $300,000 a year, so we're lucky enough to not have to think about the finances when it comes to a large family. The same goes with childcare. I have 2 nannies, and that is the only way I've found to be able to give all my kids the attention they need, seeing as my youngest has a lot of health issues. And that, even without those health issues, 6 kids are a lot of work without someone there. And finally, my husband and I were looking into adoption and surrogacy because pregnancy is hard on the body, so 3 was my limit of pregnancies, and that we were very lucky that we were able to foster and adopt those 3 kids. But even if we didn't, adopting 3 extra kids or hiring surrogates was going to be very expensive. Well, apparently after that, she talked with my brother-in-law and told him what I said, as well as how they should maybe space having kids more so they can give them a higher living standard. And now he is accusing me of manipulating her and being a jealous jealous jerk who wants to be the only one with a big family. So was I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? I honestly don't think there's anything wrong with what you said to this person. Like literally, you were just telling the truth. You were telling them exactly how it is and what it's like to have this many kids. Like, why sugarcoat it? Why would you instead lie and be like, yeah, have a lot of kids, it's easy? It's clearly not easy. I mean, it looks like the original poster literally has to make well over 6 figures, as well as hire 2 nannies just to make things work. That is a lot of money being spent raising kids. So personally, I don't think you did anything wrong by trying to give an accurate description of what's going on, because it would be so much worse if you just lied out of your teeth just to try and get her to have a big family. Like if I was in your shoes, I would want her to know exactly how I was feeling and exactly what I was going through, because describing your experience as anything other than truthful would be incredibly dishonest. My mom is upset that I don't want to celebrate my engagement without my fiance back in the country, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. So to start things out, I just got engaged a few weeks ago and I'm very happy, but that happiness didn't really last so long. I met my fiance when he was here on a student visa, and he had to go back to his country. Unfortunately, he got denied of his student visa to come back. It's been really hard on us, and it's such a horrible thing to go through. We did have plans of getting engaged before all of this ever happened, so we figured our backup option if he fails his next interview is the K-1 engagement visa. We got engaged when I went to visit him during my vacation time. It was beautiful. We got engaged in front of a palace, and it was so very special. Sadly, I had to come back home without him, and that was honestly so heartbreaking. Imagine coming home engaged and your fiance can't be with you. I have since been in such a depression over it. My parents don't seem to understand how I'm feeling. I don't want to really celebrate because I know how depressed I am, and it's a reminder that he's not here. I'd rather celebrate at any point of when he comes back. It would be more exciting and more to celebrate. My mom's friend invited me out to dinner to celebrate my engagement, and I know it was very nice of him, and it really was a nice thought. But I already had plans to celebrate my friend's birthday that day, and I knew I'll feel sad celebrating without my fiance. I tried telling my mom these factors, and she just didn't understand. She told me to cancel my friend's birthday and go out with her friend. I suggested rescheduling, but she insisted it's going to be a nice restaurant, and I absolutely should go. Ideally, I would like to have a dinner when my fiance comes back, and we can celebrate all together, but no one is hearing me out when I try to express it. After much back and forth, she agreed to reschedule, just to then turn around a few days later when I have confirmed these plans with my friends and starts crying that she wanted this dinner because she wasn't included in my engagement. She stated that this was something for her and that I'm taking away her way of celebrating my engagement. I knew she would try to turn this around and do this, and I feel so stupid for not canceling with my friends. I honestly should have seen this coming. My mom went off and told me how she feels heartbroken that she wasn't included in my engagement and wanted to be present. But that's not what I wanted. I just wanted it to be him and I that got engaged. She's sad because according to her, a lot of her friends are including in their children's engagements and are present during it. She even said how mothers wait their entire life for their child to get engaged, and she just wanted to be a part of it. Then my dad said he was sad that he didn't get the call from my fiance asking for his permission to marry me. Now, in my opinion, I feel like it's not the olden days where permission is expected. He then said how even his friend's horrible new son-in-law called and asked for permission before the engagement. I mean, I don't know what to say to that. I guess everyone is different, and the guy does seem to be horrible, so that's not really a good thing, I guess. My parents are upset with me for not wanting to celebrate the engagement because they weren't there when it happened. I get that they're upset, but no one is acknowledging how I feel. No one really understands that I don't feel like celebrating and that I'm just so sad to be without my fiance. It just doesn't feel like the time to celebrate. I wish so badly he was here and we weren't having these kind of issues. I just want to be left to myself and for them to understand why I'm sad and actually try to support me. When I tried expressing this to my mom, she said maybe I shouldn't even be engaged if I'm not going to be happy about it. She also said if anyone asks about my engagement, she won't tell them and she'll just keep it a secret. My mom keeps blaming me for not wanting to celebrate my engagement. She said other friends want to go out for dinner and give me an engagement gift, and I knew I couldn't even suggest waiting until my fiance comes into the country. So I just agreed and asked for it to be a regular dinner. She then got upset and told me it can't be a regular dinner, but a dinner to celebrate my engagement. She then said that she'll tell her friend to not give me a gift and tell her I'm too sensitive to celebrate. At that point, I just gave up and I told her to do whatever she wants. I really feel like no one is supporting me of what I'm going through at the moment, and when I tried to express it, I met with all of of this. They won't ever know what I'm going through of not being able to be with my fiance. Also, I'm starting to be made to feel horrible for them not having a part in my engagement. Should I just suck it up and deal with it? Or is how I'm feeling in any way justified? What should I do? Your mom and dad are being absolutely unreasonable in my opinion. Why on earth should they feel entitled to your engagement? First off, your mom was lying to you. She didn't have a friend who wanted to give you a gift. She was just trying to guilt trip you into saying yes. That's all she wanted to do. So when she was like, oh, I'm gonna tell my friend not to give you a gift now, it's like she's holding a carrot over your head. Do you want the gift or not? Like, come on. She's realized that she can't get her way, so now she's trying to lie and manipulate you just to try and get exactly what she wants. She wants the social credit. She wants to post this on Facebook and Instagram just to brag to all of her friends about how her kid is now engaged. Like, that is honestly insane to me, and she is clearly the one with the problem. Am I the jerk for pouring wine on a wedding guest after my friend and I made a vow as teenagers that if somebody wears white at one of our weddings, we would get revenge and pour wine all over them? Here's what happened. So my best friend since childhood got married a couple of weeks ago, and I was one of her bridesmaids. She is 26 years old and I am 22 years old. Since we were teens and learned about it, we always said if someone shows up in white to our wedding, we would throw wine on them for each other. I thought it was a joke for a while, but I was definitely wrong. She went with a simple dress because it was a barn wedding, but still looked beautiful, and she was clearly the bride. The invite and dress code said casual or cocktail attire, just wear whatever makes you feel beautiful, with the color white being reserved for the bride and the groom. The wedding was gorgeous, and an hour later was the reception, which she changed into an ankle-length pretty white dress so that she could dance around. No one was wearing white except for her and her now husband. This girl that my friend went to high school with and still kept in minor contact with, but enough to consider a friend, shows up in a mid-calf white dress with very small flower details, and I watched my friend's face fall when she saw her. I was sipping on wine while other people were watching because I'm not very social. So I walked over to her and I asked her thoughts on the outfit, and she said she wasn't a fan, but didn't know what to do. In return, I swirled my wine in the glass, and I asked her if this was my chance, and she laughed, shrugged her shoulders, and nodded towards the girl, which I took as her saying, okay. So I walked up to this girl and said something along the lines of, hey there, I really love your dress, but it isn't really the occasion for it. Is there any way you can go change out of it? She looked at me like I said the most bizarre thing in the world. She laughed at me and said, and I quote, this old thing? No, it's nothing. I even offered this chick my spare dress that I kept in my car, just in case my bridesmaid dress got dirty. And this is all because she looked about my size, but she actually declined my invitation. So this is when I looked back at my friend for her approval, and she gave me a shrug. So I went for it. I dumped my wine down the front of her dress, and when I did that, she made a big fit and stormed out. The rest of the reception went smoothly, and my friend didn't say anything besides laugh about it, and the next day even said that it was deserved. Well, fast forward, and this girl's family found me on Facebook from a friend's post, and has been sending me messages nonstop. They were telling me, you absolute jerk, you need to replace our $200 dress, as well as several other awful messages. And honestly, at this point, I'm starting to question if I should replace the dress, or if I should just keep ignoring the messages. What should I do? Okay, maybe this is just coming from me, but I really don't think it was a good idea to throw wine on another person. Like, that really did not seem like a smart idea. I get that was a joke when you were younger, but it should absolutely end there. Like, you don't just go around throwing wine on people just because they're wearing white at somebody's wedding. That is such a bad idea, and I just don't think that was smart. Like, if you really wanted to try and do this, I would have just like gone up and then tripped and been like, whoops, and then thrown the wine on her and been like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry, let me get you a napkin or a towel or whatever. And then you can ham it up and be like, oh, this was an accident, I didn't blatantly pour wine on you, because that just looks really tacky and rude. It makes you look bad, it makes the bride look bad, everybody in that situation will suck. Like, obviously she should not have worn white at somebody else's wedding, and she 100% should have changed out of it, but pouring wine on her is definitely not the answer. I can only imagine what the bride was thinking in that situation. Like, maybe they had like instant regret that, yeah, we actually went through with that. Because obviously, it's one thing to say it as teenagers, but it's an entirely different arena when you actually go ahead and do it. When it comes to paying back for her dress, I mean, you could if you wanted to be nice. I know if I was in that situation, I would be willing to help pay for it in some kind of way, especially if I really did ruin it. I mean, that is the cost of pouring wine on somebody. You might ruin their clothes. So you can definitely go ahead and send some kind of money, but I would absolutely make sure you have some kind of receipt to make sure they don't try to pull a fast one and be like, wow, you didn't pay me back. So honestly, I think everybody kind of sucks here. I really think you should not have thrown wine on that lady, and I think that lady was an absolute jerk wearing white to somebody else's wedding. Thank you so much for watching. We love and appreciate you guys so much. Seriously, if you haven't subscribed yet, you need to do it right now. So hit the subscribe button and click the bell to turn on notifications. You do not want to miss out on the stuff we got coming up because we got a lot of videos on the way, man. We're making something every single day. Also, please check out Am I the Genius? That is basically like our sister channel. We love them. They're also really fun to watch, and I think you should give them a chance as well. Thank you again, and we will see you in the next video.